Chapter 2193. Dustless treated Restia's threat as a fart. Not only was he not afraid, he even said disdainfully, "Do you think I'll kill Godfengzao first, or you'll kill me first? You! Can you not be so shameless?" Hearing that Wuchen threatened to kill Celestial being Fengzao, Celestial being Fengzao immediately cowered. Her tone was much gloomier as she clenched her silver teeth. She was so angry that she was trembling. It wasn't hard to see that if she had the confidence to kill Wu Qin, she would definitely tear this despicable and shameless brat into pieces. "I really didn't feel it." Dustless blinked his eyes with an innocent and pure face. "Do it again. I promise I'll concentrate on feeling it this time." Seeing Claire and Linslet, Dustless's eyes were filled with a gentle smile. "Did you two see it?" Claire and Linslet were at a loss for words. Usually, they would definitely make things difficult for Dustless, but now that they were facing a great enemy, no matter how unreliable Dustless was, he was still one of them. "I didn't see it." Even though the two of them were extremely unhappy, they could only endure it. However, Claire looked at Dustless with resentment. That angry look clearly said, "I'll settle this with you later." These two little girls. Although they are a little stubborn and proud, it's not a big problem overall. They know how to choose between right and wrong. Dustless nodded slightly and couldn't help but give the two a thumbs up. "You little," Restia's words came to an abrupt end as she fell silent. She had also seen Dustless's character clearly. If she scolded this brat, he would definitely go from bad to worse. At that time, the losses would be even greater, and the gains would not make up for the losses. "You win, but I'll remember this grudge in my heart." Helpless for a moment, Celestia kissed Dustless again. In the end, she chose to swallow this resentment. It wouldn't be too late to teach this brat a lesson after investigating Dustless's actual situation. What do you want me to tell you?" Wiping off the water stains on his cheeks, Wuchen winked at Celestia and smiled. He was as cheap as he could be. "Tell me your background, and how did you become an elf envoy?" Celestia changed the topic to something more serious. She was puzzled as to why Dustless became an elven envoy. Could there really be two demon kings reincarnated? Celestia guessed in confusion. "That's simple. It's because I'm a genius. I can't be looked at like an ordinary person," Dustless explained. Actually, the reason why he had become a male elf user was because he had killed Godfengzao in the system. That was how he had obtained everything from him. "That's your answer? You're not just brushing me off, are you?" Celestia snorted. Not wanting to waste any more time, she asked, "What about your strength?" "That's hard to say. The last time I fought with my full strength was a few hundred years ago. In the next few hundred years, no one made me use my full strength." Dustless fell into his memories and answered meticulously. "Nonsense, do you think I'm a child? How can you be a few hundred years old?" Celestia said angrily. "It's up to you to believe it or not. Anyway, I've already answered your question." Dustless shrugged and suddenly said, "In short, I've already achieved my goal. All that's left is to watch the show, At the end, Dustless laughed evilly again. "Watch the show?" Frowning, Celestia said indifferently, "I won't admit it even if you tell others about it. There's no proof. No one will believe you anyway." "Then what if someone saw you kissing me?" Dustless asked with a smile. "Then I'll kill him." Celestia's beautiful face was filled with anger. Her whole body was cold like a frozen corpse. She didn't smile and was completely different from the Celestia who was talking and laughing with Dustless. "I'm just afraid that you won't be willing to do it. After all, that kid is too important to you." Dustless laughed evilly. Soon after, he whispered, "Come out, stinking brat." "Celestia, why did you do that?" A gloomy roar suddenly sounded. Celestial being Fengzhou suddenly walked out with a pale face. His eyes were filled with grief and anger. Looking at the lipstick mark on Dustless's cheek, he felt that he had been cuckolded. You actually kissed Dustless. This guy is my old enemy. Celestial being Fengzhou wailed bitterly. Although there were various reasons that he couldn't do anything about, it was still a huge blow to Celestial being Fengzhou. It was no less than being struck by lightning. It was even worse than being killed. Celestial being Fengzhou appeared. Celestial being Fengzhou's beautiful face instantly turned as pale as snow. She knew that this kid had seen everything. Hee, Celestial being Fengzhou, you heard it too, right? Dustless looked at Celestial being Fengzhou with a smile and said in disdain, Celestia is now mine. As for you, scram to wherever you want to go. I'm going to take Celestia away to give birth to a nest of children. Poochie. Dustless's words were like a sharp knife that pierced into Celestial being Fengzhou's body, crushing his internal organs and causing him to spurt out a mouthful of blood. Celestial being, don't listen to his nonsense. Celestia hurriedly explained. At the same time, she glared at Dustless fiercely. Obviously, she was warning him not to spout nonsense. However, Dustless was the kind of person who didn't know what was good for him. Nonsense. What a joke. Celestial being Fengzhou witnessed you kissing me just now. Do you still want to go back on your words? Dustless didn't hesitate to add fuel to the fire. Besides, didn't you say that you want to have a beautiful night with me? Sure, I'll agree to it. However, you want me to be on top of you. Poochie. 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 Celestial being Fengzhou spurted out a few mouthfuls of blood and fainted unwillingly. P.S. 3,000 fresh flowers plus updates, 3,000 rewards plus updates, 1,000 comments plus updates, 500 automatic subscriptions plus updates. Chapter 2194. It was no wonder that God Fengzhou was so infuriated to the point of vomiting blood. It was one thing for him to be crushed by Dustless in terms of strength, but now, even the home of his soul, Restia, was exchanging flirtatious glances with Dustless. Who would be able to accept such a blow? Such a huge blow was like his beloved suddenly throwing herself at the enemy who killed her father. It was already a miracle that God Fengzhou wasn't angered to death. God Monarch, are you all right? Lizia was so frightened that she trembled and hurriedly ran over. Did I allow you to leave? His cold tone contained a meaning that couldn't be disobeyed. Lizia's body stiffened and she stopped in her tracks. The moment she turned her head, her killing intent was like an unstoppable tide. Didn't I say before that you are now mine? What, are you going to break your promise now? Dustless asked indifferently. He was indescribably calm and natural. However, Celestia's soul was trembling as she felt an invisible pressure pressing down on her chest. Do you know what I hate the most in my life? Dustless's bright eyes suddenly became deep as he sank into his memories. His tone was also filled with vicissitudes. What I want must be mine, regardless of whether it is a person or an object. You can raise conditions or complain, but you can't go against the rules I set. What will happen if I go against them? Lizia asked expressionlessly. What will happen? Dustless chuckled. With a wave of his hand, a rock on the ground flew into his hand. Shortly after, with a slight force, the rock that was as hard as a diamond instantly turned into powder. This is the outcome. With a light blow, the remaining powder between his palm and fingers was blown away by the wind. Are you threatening me? Lizia was furious as a wave of energy that could topple mountains and overturn seas appeared in her body. Boom boom boom. The shock wave landed on Dustless and the others. Claire and Linslet's expressions changed greatly. In an instant, it was as if the stars had shifted and they had arrived in another spacetime. The gravity here was several times that of the previous world. It was incomparably difficult for them to walk. Their faces were red and their necks were thick. They could suffocate at any time. This is your strength. It's really too weak. With contempt in his eyes, an even stronger energy wave broke out of the cage. Boom, boom, boom. Energy ripples that could be seen with the naked eye swept out like an unstoppable tsunami that could destroy the heavens and earth. In the blink of an eye, Lysia's aura was shattered. She was also forced to retreat and almost fell to the ground. How can he be so strong? If I am the reincarnation of a demon king, then what is this guy? Reincarnation of a demon god. When God Fengzhou saw this scene, he broke down. His eyes were lifeless and at a loss. When he saw Arestia being forced to retreat, he stood there in a daze. All along, Arestia had been his pillar of support. Now that his spiritual faith had been destroyed, how could God Fengzhou have the courage to face Dustless? That you of that you of that. Of you, it to me ditto you. At this moment, Dustless's playful heart had completely vanished. His black eyes were like splashes of ink, emitting a chilling aura that made people not dare to look at him directly. Raising their heads slightly and meeting those star-like eyes, they would feel ashamed of their own inferiority. The person in front of them was a wandering immortal with a cold and noble temperament. How could he be the frivolous hooligan from before? Everything that happened before seemed to be a deliberate disguise. If you stop now and come to my side, I can be merciful and let this brat go. Dustless spat out a chilling aura. He carefully examined the unresigned Lysia and said in a deep voice, "You can say that I am barbaric, overbearing, and unreasonable. However, this is the privilege of the strong. It's just like what that old witch Grievous did. She wanted me to put on a maid's uniform, but I stripped her naked and put on a maid's uniform while she was still alive. She still pinched her nose and endured it. Can't this bastard talk less? He even purposely pokes at other people's scars. He is even more of a demon king than a demon king." Dean Gravis, who was shocked by the aura from before, hurried over. Who would have thought that he would hear Dustless scolding him? He was so angry that he didn't dare to flare up. He was so angry that his lungs were about to explode. "Come here." Beckoning with his finger, Dustless said to Lysia, "Before my patience runs out. You are not allowed to go." God Fengzhou's face was ferocious. He clenched his fists tightly and sweat flowed down his face. "I just like this kind of scene where the male lead is heartbroken." Dustless chuckled. He was indescribably annoyed with the protagonist's halo. Why should all the good things belong to the original protagonist? Especially a trash like God Fengzhou. Dustless can destroy him with a wave of his hand. Why should all the good things belong to him? Unfair. Even if he didn't have any feelings for Lysia and everything before was just teasing her, Dustless still wanted to be snatched away by her. It would be great if he could anger God Fengzhou to death. Although he could crush 10,000 God Fengzhou with his strength, Dustless still liked to see his heartbroken appearance. When did I start to have such a bad taste? Dustless shook his head and couldn't help but smile bitterly. Dustless pointed at God Fengzhou and said coldly, "Quickly come over and massage my shoulders and legs. Otherwise, I will kill this brat." A dazzling light shot out from his hand. Poochie. This scorching light pierced through God Fengzhou's shoulder, leaving behind a shocking hole. Don't think that I am too much of a bully. Who asked this to be the world of the strong? Don't say that I don't have the demeanor of a strong person. I am already very friendly. Otherwise, I can do even more crazy things. I will let you see what it means to bully the weak. Why don't I tell you directly? I am a person who likes to bully the weak. Dustless said without blushing or panting. He didn't feel that he was shameless at all. Living in this world, one should be unrestrained. If one was restrained by the views of others, then what was the point of becoming strong? P.S. 3,000 fresh flowers plus updates, 3,000 rewards plus updates, 1,000 reviews plus updates, 500 automatic subscriptions plus updates. Chapter 2195. Everyone looked at each other and saw the astonishment in each other's eyes. Such shameless words were said by Dushless in such an open and above-board manner. It really refreshed everyone's understanding of him. What are you looking at? Did I say something wrong? Noticing that everyone was looking at him strangely, Dustless continued, the stupid one is God Feng Zhao. He provoked an enemy who is countless times stronger than him. Isn't that digging his own grave? Isn't it wrong to say that he is stupid? Dustless's words completely removed the suspicion of him bullying the weak. Everyone looked at God Feng Zhao like idiots. That's right. This guy knows that he is not Dustless's opponent, yet he still deliberately provoked him. Isn't he courting death? Who said he isn't? What a hothead. He is ugly and has no eyes for anyone. The surrounding female students looked at God Feng Zhao with strange eyes. They pointed at him and shook their heads in disdain. In fact, it didn't matter who was right or wrong. The key was who was stronger. God Feng Zhao's strength was not as good as Dustless's. Even if he was right, he was now an unreasonable person. Everyone looked at him with disdain and ridicule. It couldn't be helped. Every world paid particular attention to the strong. Just like Grievous, that old witch, she was also subdued by Dushless. Are you guys all fence-sitters? God Feng Zhao's face was gloomy, as if he had eaten a fly. He was extremely uncomfortable. Being pointed at by countless people, no matter how calm he was, he couldn't help but be angry. It's you who is too stupid. Dustless looked at God Feng Zhao with pity and said, there is a saying that a wise man submits to circumstances. Sometimes, blindly going against the current will only lead you further away from this world. Do you understand? I don't understand. God Feng Zhao valiantly locked onto Dushless with an unknown source of confidence. Then I'll be merciful and let you see clearly what the nature of this world is like. Dustless smiled faintly. Soon after, he hooked his finger at Restia, indicating for her to come over. This guy is too stupid. Claire looked at the miserable divine being Feng Zhao and secretly scolded him for not being tactful. Based on her understanding of Dushless, if this guy had been willing to lower his head, he might have already turned the matter into a small one. However, his unyielding attitude had completely aroused Dustless's interest. That's too unwise. You're clearly no match for him, so why do you have to ask for trouble? Linslet cursed inwardly. At the same time, she gave God Feng Zhao the title of a fool. Don't go there, Lestia. Celestial being Feng Zhao was like a gambler who had lost a lot. He roared with rage, get this straight, no matter what, you are still my contracted spirit. Although they had already parted ways, no matter what, Lestia was still God Feng Zhao's contracted spirit in the past. Stinking brat, you still dare to challenge me. Dustless sneered in his heart. At the same time, he gestured with his thumb and said coldly, now Lestia is mine. If you don't like it, then stand up and hit me. These words were like a meteorite falling from the sky, smashing God Feng Zhao into a daze. He stuttered for a long time, unable to say anything. If he had the strength, he would have already eliminated Dushless, this thorn in his side. However, he was no match for him. Still not coming over. Lightly gazing at Celestia, who had a gloomy expression, the corners of Wu Chen's mouth curled up slightly, revealing a gentle smile. What are you trying to do? This gentle smile was the smile of a demon in Lestia's eyes. She looked up and saw Dustless's finger once again condensing a golden flash and aiming it at God Feng Zhao. This time, Dustless was no longer fooling around. The dangerous light beam was directly aimed at God Feng Zhao's head. Stop it. Lestia could no longer maintain her calm. Her lips curled into a sad but beautiful smile. In the end, she slowly walked towards Dustless. Lestia, hurry up and make it clear to me. I am no longer your contracted spirit since a long time ago. Turning her head and looking coldly at God Fengzhou, Lestia's words were like a steel machine. It was as if she never knew God Fengzhou. Your acting is very good. Seeing this, Dustless only smiled without saying anything. Even if Lestia covered it up perfectly, he could still see the sadness in the depths of her eyes. Under God Fengzhou's dazed gaze, Lestia's lips landed on Dustless's cheek again. Moreover, like a little girl in love, her entire body softened in Dustless's embrace. Bang! This epic scene gave God Fengzhou a blow that was no less than killing him directly. Stretching out his two legs, God Fengzhou finally fainted from the blow. Hurry up and send him to the infirmary. What are you still standing there for? Dean Grievous scolded the surrounding students. At the same time, he glared fiercely at Dustless, who was beaming with joy. This old woman. Seriously, it seems like she has forgotten the lesson from last time. She dares to provoke me again. Dustless helplessly rubbed his nose. In his heart, he was already planning how to deal with this old witch, Grievous. Following God Fengzhou's fainting, this sudden incident came to an end. Everyone left one after another. You have achieved your goal. Didn't you just want to give God a mental blow and make him collapse? What a vicious and sinister fellow. Can you take your hand away now? A voice that was as cold as winter entered his left ear. Dustless was slightly stunned. Turning his head to look, the person that entered his sight was Lestia, whose small face was covered with a layer of frost. At this moment, Dustless was hugging her snake-like waist. Lestia couldn't escape even if she wanted to. P.S. 3,000 fresh flowers plus updates, 3,000 tips plus updates, 1,000 rating votes plus updates, 500 automatic subscriptions plus updates. Chapter 2196. Oh. Don't be so heartless, Restia. No matter what, you are still my contracted spirit. Why do you have to put on such a cold face? You are such a beauty. So why do you have to be upset over a piece of trash? I really feel sorry for you. Although this is the first time we have met, from the first time I saw you, Restia, I have already determined that you are my contracted spirit. No one can change that. Dustless said with a delicate and serious tone. Don't give me that. With such flowery words, you must have deceived a lot of women, right? Restia said with a straight face, obviously not falling for it. You can't say that. How can my true feelings be flowery words? Dustless shook his head and said calmly, everything has two sides. You have only seen the evil side of me, but my kind side has been denied. You are kind? Restia stared at Dustless as if she had discovered a new continent. She curled her lips and said, this joke is as boring and laughable as if today is the end of the world. Your hair is long and your knowledge is short. Dustless was not angry. He explained softly, today, God Fengzhou was humiliated by me. He will definitely work harder in the future. Isn't that the good side? Are you asking me to thank you? Restia's face immediately turned red. Because of you, my relationship with God Fengzhou might be completely broken. Isn't that great? Dustless looked at Restia without a care and said domineeringly, you are my contracted spirit. It is necessary for you to destroy the contract with God Fengzhou. You are my person in life and my ghost in death. Even if you reincarnate as an immovable stone in your next life, I will still be the stonemason who polishes and carves you. You are too much. Celestia was so angry that her whole body was trembling. Her eyes that were as clear as water glanced at Wuchen. Her body suddenly flashed with a purple light, and soon after, she turned into a stream of light and disappeared. Why didn't you make her stay? Claire and Linslet asked doubtfully. From their point of view, with Dustless's style, he would definitely crush Lysia until she was convinced. Isn't that too boring? Women aren't meant to be beaten up. Moreover, Restia is a very special woman, Dustless explained mysteriously with an unfathomable expression. Stop pretending to be mysterious. What's so special about this woman? She still has 2 balls and a butt. If there's anything special about her, it would be that her 2 balls are slightly bigger than mine. Claire said disdainfully with her arms crossed in front of her. At the same time, she looked at her chest with extreme displeasure. Her resentful eyes clearly said, why can't you become bigger? You're right. Hearing this, Dustless couldn't help but widen his eyes. He gave Claire's valiant reasoning a thumbs up, inwardly admiring her. This little girl was indeed skilled and daring. But, Dustless narrowed his eyes slightly and said with incomparable wisdom, Lysia's body has already submitted to me, but her will is still persevering. She still has hope for God Fengzhou, so my next task is to crush her inner perseverance and trample on her last faint ray of hope until it's worthless. Linslet and Claire looked at each other. They naturally knew that the flame that Lysia had high hopes for was actually that brat, God Fengzhou. It was midnight. After displaying his astonishing strength, Dustless naturally felt that Grievous's attitude towards him had become much gentler. At least when they spoke, they were now on equal footing. It's good to be strong. You can do whatever you want and there will be people fawning over you. Even if you do something wrong, no one will criticize you. Instead, you can misrepresent a deer as a horse. No wonder no matter when, the world pursues powerful strength. Even I am no exception. In a luxurious room, Dustless sat on the sofa and sighed with emotion. Opposite him was Grievous. This is really rare. Looking at Dustless in astonishment, Grievous said in an incomparably strange manner, I didn't expect someone like you to be so sentimental. Since Dustless was so powerful, he must have gone through a lot of life and death tortures. His current melancholy appearance really surprised Grievous. What's so strange about it? No matter how powerful and profound a person is, how terrifying his existence is, and how destructive his strength is, there was once a period of time when he was young and inexperienced. Dustless spoke frankly, his tone undulating. Before becoming strong, who didn't tuck their tail between their legs and behave? But then again, Dustless's blank gaze regained some clarity. Gazing at Grievous, he frowned and asked, It's the middle of the night. You didn't call me here to lament about life, right? Don't disturb my sleep. Humph, what a rude brat. Grievous let out a muffled groan. Her pajamas couldn't help but tremble slightly, causing her snow-white skin to slide down. Her 2 shoulders were exposed under Dustless's eyelids. Just a little more and her majestic cleavage would be revealed. Although a rose with thorns has a unique charm, but I'm not interested right now. Say what you want, don't waste my time. Dustless's calm gaze only glanced at Grievous, then left without any reluctance. You have a strong will. Grievous praised. She could see that Dustless wasn't interested in her. It's not that I have a strong will. There's no man in this world who isn't lustful. Dustless stared at Grievous for a few more times, then said in an unusually serious manner, If you can't successfully seduce others, it only means that your looks are average and can't move the other party. Pfft. Hearing this, Grievous spat out all the red wine that she drank from the bottom of her heart. She looked at Dustless furiously. Wasn't this brat mocking her for being ugly? I won't lower myself to your level. I'm a great person who doesn't hold a grudge against a petty person. Grievous took a deep breath and suppressed her boiling anger. Then, she looked outside the door and said expressionlessly, All right, you can come in now. P.S. 3,000 fresh flowers plus updates, 3,000 rewards plus updates, 1,000 comments plus updates, 500 automatic subscriptions plus updates. Chapter 2197. Dustless couldn't help but be startled. He looked over and saw that the person who had walked into the room was Alice. Unfortunately, the girl's face was red and her head was lowered. She didn't dare to look at Dustless's eyes. She was like a little girl who had done something wrong and felt guilty. She lowered her head and looked at the ground nervously. This is strange. Why would the proud leader of the Knights look at me like this? Could it be that someone else has possessed her? Dustless was surprised. He knew Alice's pride very well. She usually looked at him with a valiant and spirited look. She was never at a loss like she was now. What kind of show is this? A honey trap? Dustless looked at Grievous. His clear eyes didn't blink as he waited for her answer. Do you still remember the agreement? Grievous didn't answer but asked instead. Agreement? You're talking about the competition, right? You're really an old woman who doesn't know her place. You called the competition an agreement. Even if you lose, you want to have a good reputation. Dustless curled his lips to express his disdain. You little brat. Grievous was secretly angry. She couldn't help but scold him. Can't you show the magnanimity that a strong person should have? There's a saying that goes, let people off if you can. That depends on the person. If the other party is a beauty, I prefer to talk about the demeanor of a man rather than the demeanor of a strong person. Dustless said. He then added, if you have something to say, just say it. It's best if you don't waste my time. I'm a very busy person. You're still busy. You're busy making things difficult for others. Grievous complained in her heart but didn't dare to say it out loud. Even though they had only known each other for a short time, she understood Dustless's character. He would seek revenge for every little thing. Even if he said something bad, he would retaliate 100 times. It would be a tragedy if she was angered to death. I admit defeat in the previous competition. Alice suddenly interrupted. She looked at Dustless with bright eyes and threw away all the dissatisfaction in her heart. She took a deep breath and said, according to the previous bet, I am willing to become your servant. When she said this, Alice's eyes were no longer as bright as before. Instead, they were filled with indescribable confusion and dullness. Her life was supposed to be open and aboveboard, but it ended so mysteriously. How could she not be depressed? No wonder you're dressed like this, realization dawned on Dustless. He raised his head and saw Alice dressed in a black and white maid uniform. She was looking at Dustless cautiously, looking extremely respectful and serious. However, Dustless could see the deep disappointment in her eyes. Leave. I don't need a servant. After a moment of silence, Dustless said something shocking. Not only was Alice stunned, even the languid Grievous couldn't help but be stunned. She couldn't hide the confusion in her eyes. Even though Dustless and Alice hadn't competed yet, there was no doubt that the person who lost in the end was undoubtedly Alice. According to the original bet, Alice, who lost, had to become Dustless's servant. However, Dustless rejected her. This was really strange. Did I hear wrongly? This kid is actually so kind. It's a miracle. Grievous looked shocked. In her opinion, Dustless was the kind of bad guy who wouldn't give in to others. Now that he suddenly gave up, it was really unexpected. Don't be surprised. Dustless snorted and looked at Grievous unkindly. He said coldly, if you don't mind, I'm willing to let you, an ageless witch, be my servant. That. Can I ask why? Alice's face was filled with joy, but at the same time, she felt a little defeated. She subconsciously touched her face. Am I not worthy of him? Am I not even qualified to be this guy's servant? When she thought up to here, Alice became furious again, and the gaze she looked at Dustless with had a little more displeasure and resentment. Women are indeed fickle. As a wily old fox, Dustless naturally saw Alice's displeasure immediately. He didn't know whether to laugh or cry. After sorting out his thoughts, he slowly said, "You are still a beautiful girl in the bud. There are still good times in the future. If you are tired of living one day and feel that life is boring, I can promise you to be my servant." "You wish?" Alice shook her head like a rattledrum and said happily, "Since you said so, don't regret it. Hoping that I will be your servant in the future is simply wishful thinking." "Is that so? Then let's wait and see. Who knows, you might come and beg me one day." Dustless stared at the stubborn girl, and his mind went into a trance. For a moment, he couldn't help but be reminded of the past. When he was still an ignorant youth, Alice's stubborn eyes were very similar to his. Therefore, Dustless gave Alice a chance. "Is there anything else? I can leave now." Dustless stretched and looked impatient. "Do I annoy you that much here? No matter what, you have slept here for a night. Pay attention to your attitude, brat." Grievous's good impression of Dustless disappeared instantly. "You're the one who should pay attention to your attitude. If you call me stinky brat again, I guarantee that you'll be begging for death." Dustless revealed a naughty smile, causing Grievous to have goosebumps all over her body. This guy is a demon. Grievous felt a chill in her heart. At the same time, she waved her hand and signaled Dustless to go wherever it was cool and not disturb her in the future. Dustless didn't play by the rules at all. The speed at which he changed his attitude was faster than flipping the pages of a book. "Goodbye." Dustless didn't say anything else and turned around to leave. Previously, he didn't know why Claire called for him. Since he was free, he might as well go and take a look. P.S. 3,000 fresh flowers plus updates, 3,000 rewards plus updates, 00 rating plus updates, 500 automatic subscriptions plus updates. Chapter 2198. Some were happy while some were sad. Some were happy while others were sad. Alice was naturally so excited that she was speechless. After all, Wu Chen had suddenly cancelled the bet with her and she didn't have to be Wu Chen's servant anymore. She was so happy that she was jumping for joy. As for the other person, God Fengzhao, he was naturally depressed. Is there any way to defeat Dustless? In a broken house beside the stinky stable, God Fengzhao was lying on a thick pile of grass with a black face. His whole body was lifeless and there was no sign of life. Dustless's slap on the face was too powerful. God Fengzhao was conflicted for a long time but he still couldn't get over it. In his opinion, if he wanted to defeat Dustless, he only needed absolute strength. But, Restia, even you have betrayed me. Looking at his left hand, God Fengzhao's eyes were indescribably turbid. He was filled with despair for the future and confusion for his own life. "I didn't betray you," a melodious voice suddenly sounded. A girl in a black dress descended from the sky. Her beautiful face was filled with sorrow and endless bitterness. This person was Restia. "You didn't betray me." Hearing this gentle sound of nature, the anger in God Fengzhao's heart was not cleansed. Instead, it was completely ignited. His eyes were bloodshot, like a trapped wolf that wanted to devour Restia. "I am a contract spirit belonging to God Fengzhao. Now, go and tell Dustless what you said. We can start over and I can trust you again." God Fengzhao's eyes were like torches. His eyes were fixed on Restia as though he was staring at his prey. Restia was speechless. She couldn't say anything at all. When this sentence was said, God Fengzhao's head was separated from his body. Even though they had only known each other for a short time, Restia understood Dustless's temper very well. You really betrayed me. God Fengzhou glared angrily as he clenched his fists. You should be more careful in the future. After looking at God Fengzhou with a complicated expression, Restia's body suddenly drifted and disappeared from his sight. Restia, in the shabby room, only God Fengzhou was left. Previously, he still had a trace of hope in his heart, but now, the cruel reality mercilessly crushed his extravagant hope and sent him to hell. On the other side, Dustless didn't even knock and directly barged into Claire's dormitory. Claire, you're in such a hurry to find me, don't tell me you've really fallen in love with me. However, in the next second, Dustless regretted it. I'm sorry, I'll be more careful next time. Dustless was stunned for a moment before he hurriedly lowered his head. He glanced at Claire from the corner of his eyes and saw that she was changing into a white fat too. These explanations were obviously superfluous, and Claire obviously didn't listen. Blushing, she angrily rebuked, perverted beast, why didn't you even knock? It must be intentional. Did you forget that not long ago, you gave me the key to your dormitory, so In short, you have to understand that I'm not interested in your body. Raising his head to look at the angry Claire, Dustless was filled with righteousness. His calm gaze was as if he was looking at a rock. In fact, Dustless didn't have any dirty thoughts in his heart. It was all a misunderstanding. However, who would have thought that this rash action would anger Claire again? Women were indeed the most inexplicable creatures. Bastard, are you saying that my body is too bad and that I don't even have the capital to arouse your desire? Tell me, do you want to be 30% cooked human flesh or 100% cooked? Holding the long whip in her hand, Claire's entire face was bright red, like a monkey's butt. Are you crazy? Dustless's head turned black, and 100,000 alpacas' army surged through his mind. He couldn't help but think of that sentence, only women and villains are difficult to deal with. Sit down for me. Realizing that Claire was going to continue being unreasonable, Dustless's expression suddenly changed. At the same time, he released his powerful aura. As if struck by lightning, Claire suddenly went limp on the bed. You bullied me. Looking at Dustless with grievance, Claire almost burst into tears. Women are indeed natural performers. I clearly didn't do anything. Dustless's face was full of depression. He only released his aura and didn't hurt Claire. Otherwise, she wouldn't be alive. Claire, long story short, why did you call me over? Dustless went straight to the point. Looking around, he instinctively felt that there was a conspiracy. Sometimes, this girl with a jumpy mind really couldn't be treated like a normal person. You are my contracted spirit. Is it wrong for me to call you over? Crossing her arms in front of her, Claire looked down at Dustless with a face full of arrogance. However, due to her height, Claire looked more like she was venting her dissatisfaction. You definitely can't sign a contract with that hateful Celestia. Glaring at Dustless covetously, Claire's face was serious. Why? Rubbing his nose, Dustless felt even more confused. Although Celestia didn't have much of an effect on his strength, he still couldn't help but want to ask. This is my master's world. Why are you, a slave spirit, interrupting? Claire scolded with a straight face. This reason is really. Dustless rolled his eyes. This valiant reason really left him speechless. Wait for me to drink some water before I teach you a lesson. In the future, don't flirt with other people, especially women, no matter if they are humans or elves. Claire picked up the cup and was about to drink when a sudden change occurred. P.S. 3,000 flowers plus updates, 3,000 rewards plus updates, 1,000 reviews plus updates, 500 automatic subscriptions plus updates. Chapter 2199. Plop. The hot water in the bottle seemed to come alive in an instant. It suddenly drilled out and transformed into a ferocious python. With lightning speed, it coiled around Claire from head to toe. Water elemental riot. Seeing this, Dustless raised his eyebrows slightly. He suddenly remembered that something like this had happened in the original work. So that's how it is. Was it done by that chick, Restia? Dustless pursed his lips and smiled lightly. He secretly cursed the willful girl. If she had any trouble, she could have come to him. However, it's not bad to use Restia's hand to teach this abominable girl a lesson. She's a slave to and fro all day long. Dustless quickly felt relieved and walked to Claire with a playful expression. Yo. What happened to our previously unparalleled Miss Claire Lucio? Dustless laughed gloatingly, not caring about Claire's green cheeks. You perverted beast. Your master is in danger and you're still looking on indifferently. Claire loudly scolded, has your conscience been eaten enough? If you say it's eaten by a dog, then it's eaten by a dog. I don't care anyway. Dustless shrugged indifferently. Don't think that I can't escape without you. Claire no longer looked at Dustless and tenderly shouted, Scarlet, hurry up and evaporate these water elemental snakes for me. Awoo! The fiery red cat's ferocious nature erupted. It bared its sharp fangs and spat out a large mouthful of flames. However, water and fire were two elements that restrained each other. It was normal for water to extinguish fire, but using fire to evaporate water had never been heard of. Perhaps some experts who had reached the peak of fire could evaporate water, but Scarlet was absolutely unable to do so at present. Poochie. Sure enough, as Dustless had guessed, the moment the flames came into contact with the water snakes, they were ruthlessly extinguished. Ah! At this moment, Claire suddenly screamed. This scream was filled with fear, anger, and shyness. TSK, what a beautiful scenery. Claire was out of luck, but Dustless feasted his eyes on her. The rampaging water element increased its power to bind Claire, tearing her clothes apart. Her snow-white skin was in full view, and Claire's soft moans that seemed to be in pain yet not in pain had a special charm to them. You bastard, are you really going to leave me in the lurch? Looking down at the towering Dustless, Claire wanted to bite him to death. Save you. Dustless curled his lips and said disapprovingly, didn't you call me a perverted beast and even try to force yourself on me? My innocence was almost tainted by you. Dustless looked at Claire with a face full of fear. He was extremely aggrieved, like a resentful woman in her boudoir, asking for a beating. What did you say? I forced myself on you. This sentence was like a ferocious attack, smashing Claire until she saw stars. She said angrily, are you kidding me? When did I force myself on you? No matter how shameless you are, you should have a bottom line. Is that so? Dustless stroked his chin disapprovingly and continued to tease, you don't have to deny it, just admit it. As the saying goes, since ancient times, beauties love heroes. Just admit it. No one will dislike you, and I won't hate you. After all, this is very normal. Normal my ass. Claire was incomparably depressed. Why was this guy so infuriating? Then I'll take my leave. Dustless shrugged and left with an indifferent expression. Wait, you're not allowed to leave. Stop right there. Claire shouted to stop him. Then tell me first. You were the one who shamelessly pursued me, right? Dustless blinked with a serious expression. Even Scarlet shifted his gaze. The current Dustless simply couldn't bear to look straight at him. He didn't have the slightest bearing of an expert and was extremely shameless. Claire glared at Dustless. Her breathing sped up and she lowered her head in hesitation. You're in such a sorry state now. If Linslet sees you, shut up, I'll agree to your conditions. Hearing Linslet's name, Claire's body trembled slightly. She clenched her teeth and said, I was the one who shamelessly pursued Dustless. At least you know your place. Dustless smiled radiantly and said, also, you're not allowed to call me a perverted beast in the future, understand? I promise you. Claire agreed to all of his conditions. She had no choice but to agree under his roof. She could only temporarily compromise with Dustless conditions. However, at this moment, she already hated the bastard who caused the water element to go berserk. In fact, all of this was Lizia's doing. She just wanted to take revenge on Dustless. Who would have thought that Claire would be so pitifully implicated? Since it's like this, I'll be merciful and let you go. Dustless didn't waste any words. He just wanted to teach Claire a lesson so that this little girl wouldn't be called a perverted beast all day long. This nickname was too conspicuous. After a long time, it might really be misunderstood. Boom, boom, boom. Releasing a bit of his aura, the water snakes condensed on Claire's body were instantly shattered and turned into water droplets on the ground. So powerful. Claire was dazed. After being released, she felt her entire body relax a lot. Thinking of her previous encounter, she said angrily, damn perverted beast, everything I said before doesn't count. You're still my diligent spirit. Is that so? Since you don't give me any face, then I'll just go seek refuge with Linslet. Dustless's face was calm. What? You traitor. Who allowed you to leave? Come back. Claire stared at Dustless's back and was really anxious. She hurriedly rushed over, but it was at this moment that an ugly monster descended from the sky. P.S. 3,000 flowers plus updates, 3,000 rewards plus updates, 1,000 comments plus updates, 500 automatic subscriptions plus updates. Chapter 2200. The purple monster slowly descended from the sky. It was a ball-shaped creature with a huge mouth that bared its fangs. It took up almost half of its body and spat out poisonous purple gas. The moment the monster landed, the sky darkened and was covered by its huge body. Ayo ayo ayo, the monster released a hysterical force from its mouth, and the fluctuations turned into a destructive shockwave. The buildings below were all destroyed and disintegrated like rotten wood, unable to withstand a single blow. Claire's dorm room was also the same, instantly exploding. If it wasn't for Dustless' quick reaction and carrying Claire away in time, Claire would have been buried alive. That was close. Claire was scared. Looking at the monster in the sky, she was furious. Just as she was about to teach it a lesson, she realized that Dustless was still hugging her. Put me down quickly. Claire was embarrassed. Being hugged by Dustless so openly, she wanted to find a hole to hide in. Brat, you're not taking advantage of me, are you? I think you're taking advantage of me. Dustless rolled his eyes and teased, you're hugging my neck and sticking to my chest. Who's the one taking advantage of who? Claire was speechless. She quickly let go of Dustless's neck, her face flushed red. Even if I change the plot, what's supposed to come will come sooner or later. Dustless's voice came from the ruins filled with dust. Boom boom boom. A brutal energy wave exploded, blowing away the dust in the sky. Whoosh whoosh whoosh. At the same time, such a huge commotion naturally alarmed the others. The students of Alicia Academy all stared at the ugly creature in the sky with wide eyes. What kind of monster is this? Claire's eyes widened. The shock in her eyes was hard to conceal. It was the first time she saw such an ugly creature. It had a huge body and a huge mouth full of fangs. You don't know. To think that you're a student of this academy. The problem children of the Crow class really can't be looked at with the eyes of ordinary people. Dustless curled his lips and then explained in a soft voice, "This is a magical fairy." I. Dustless's words hit Claire so hard that her face flushed red and she felt even more embarrassed. She rolled her eyes and said angrily, "I'm purposely giving you a chance to perform, do you understand? If everyone knows that you're a pervert, that you're ignorant, I, as the master, will lose my face. Thank you, but don't ask me about this kind of thing in the future." Dustless expressed his disdain. This monster seems to have appeared in the original novel as well. Dustless narrowed his eyes and carefully observed the magical fairy floating in the sky. He thought to himself, in the original work, the fairy that disrupted the duel between Alice, Claire, Lincelet, and that brat Feng Zhao seems to be this monster. Speaking of which, wasn't this monster released by Lestia? In the original work, it was to help Feng Zhao awaken, but now it's attacking me. Thinking of this, Dustless smiled bitterly. So it was he who had dragged Claire and the others down. It seems that Lestia has quite a bit of resentment towards me. Dustless sighed and looked up at the monster in the sky. Spiritual pressure erupted from his body, and just as he was about to crush it, the rampaging power suddenly stopped. This is a good opportunity. This monster can be used as a touchstone. It's a good opportunity to test that holy sword. Dustless's eyes lit up, and the corner of his mouth raised in an imperceptible arc. This was a good opportunity to display the power of fairies. Everyone, pay attention. Let this monster understand the serious consequences of invading Alicia Academy. At this moment, the members of the Knight Regiment swarmed over, led by Alice. She swept past Dustless and Claire and stood closest to the magical fairy. Turning her head to look at Dustless and Claire, Alice sternly ordered, "This has nothing to do with the two of you. Hurry up and run for your lives." "You want me to run for my life? Little girl, this joke is too tasteless. Boring." Hearing this, Dustless laughed involuntarily and rolled his eyes. "You want me to run for my life? Are you kidding me? What did you call me?" Alice looked angrily at Dustless. "It's fine if this guy secretly calls me a little girl, but how am I going to stand if he calls me a little girl in front of so many people? It's as if I'm Dustless's mistress." "That. Miss Alice, this monster is my prey. I hope that your Knight Regiment can make things easy and let me deal with this monster." Dustless couldn't be bothered to bicker with Alice. He was planning to use this magical fairy to test the power of the holy sword. How could he leave so easily? Besides, Dustless didn't think that the Knight Regiment would be able to deal with this magical fairy. However, Alice was displeased when she heard this. "This has nothing to do with you. Protecting the safety of the Academy is the responsibility of our Knight Regiment." Alice didn't back down at all. If the Knight Regiment were to run away now, how would they continue to survive? As the leader, she would become a joke. "You'll suffer if you don't listen to your elders. I want to see how your Knight Regiment will be beaten up." Dustless groaned. It was rare for him to bicker with Alice. The cruel reality would make Alice bow her head. This magical fairy was naturally just trash that couldn't withstand a single blow to Dustless, but to Alice and the others, it was absolutely an unprecedentedly powerful enemy. After all, these members of the Knight Regiment sounded mighty and domineering, but in reality, they were all flowers in a greenhouse. They hadn't experienced the destruction of storms and could wither at any time in the face of a violent storm. P.S. 3,000 fresh flowers plus updates, 3,000 rewards plus updates, 1,000 comments plus updates, 500 automatic subscriptions plus updates. Chapter 2201. Dustless didn't think that this group of immature knights would be a match for the magical fairies. In the original work, it was also God Feng Zhao's small universe that finally defeated the magical fairies. It was obviously impossible to count on this group of young ladies. "Let me try," the power of that so-called holy sword first. Dustless squinted his eyes and didn't move at all. He tried to come in contact with that new power that he had never felt before. Then, he muttered softly, "The holy sword that Ling Che forged into the Queen of Steel and slayed the demon god has now turned into a sword of steel. Give me strength." Boom! 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 Dustless's right arm exploded with a rather shocking energy wave. The tyrannical energy wave spread out and attracted everyone's attention. They all turned to look at Dustless in shock. This guy. Alice swallowed her saliva and looked at Dustless eagerly. It was her first time seeing Dustless release the fairy device. She was anxiously waiting. Not only that, but Claire also looked at Dustless without blinking. Her pretty face was full of anticipation. That holy sword should be very powerful, right? Claire was full of envy. She looked at the light that was blooming in Dustless's hand. It was as dazzling and holy as the sun. However, she felt very sad. After all, as Witch Ji, she didn't tame the holy sword and actually chose Dustless. How could it not be complicated? So powerful, Alice looked at Dustless with interest. She could clearly feel the extent of the divine power that erupted from Dustless's body. It must be the incomparably powerful fairy device. That's not right. After a while, the light in his hand disappeared. Dustless suddenly felt that there was an additional sword in his hand. However, the texture didn't seem right. If I remember correctly, this is the holy sword. But this weight, why? Sensing that the so-called holy sword was incomparably light, Dustless's heart suddenly thumped. He suddenly recalled God Feng Zhao's encounter and felt even more uneasy. He quickly looked up. Mother asterisk Kerr, it's really like this. What a scammer. A genius turned into a loser in an instant. Dustless cursed loudly. The holy sword in front of him was just an exquisite dagger. It was exactly the same as the dagger used by God Feng Zhao in the original work. How could it be a holy sword? It was more like a decoration for the nobles. Ha! Dustless's black-bellied smile spread through the clouds. Claire held her belly and laughed without any integrity. She didn't care about Dustless' feelings and mocked, "Dustless, didn't you always say you were a genius? Why is there so little noise now? Is this your elven device? What a joke." Exactly. Although Alice's reaction wasn't as exaggerated as Claire's, she was still giggling. Dustless was speechless and embarrassed. He did not know how to explain. After all, this was the first time he had used the so-called elven device, and he did not know the specific reason. He could only bite the bullet and say, "Accident, it was all an accident. Maybe it's because it's my first time using it, so I'm still not familiar with it." "You're right, but isn't your elven equipment a little too hilarious? This isn't a beauty pageant. If it was, I guarantee that your pearlescent holy sword. No, I should say your little dagger would definitely win." Claire attacked Dustless without any restraint. She had been bullied by this brat so many times, so she naturally had to take the opportunity to get back at him. "Who told you that my dagger can't kill people? Even if it's a wooden sword, I can still use it to slaughter this fairy." Dustless's tone was very casual, but his great confidence made people involuntarily believe him. "I don't believe you. Who are you trying to fool?" Claire said disdainfully, looking at the little dagger in Dustless's hand with contempt. It looked pretty good, but was it a joke to rely on this thing to kill a fairy? Ayo. At the same time, the fairy floating in the sky roared wildly, and an oppressive roar resounded between heaven and earth. So strong. The expressions of Alice and the other members of the Knight Regiment all changed greatly. Everyone's face was full of caution, and their previous relaxed expressions disappeared without a trace. Smolf. Alice waved her large hand and a sharp roar sounded in the azure sky. Looking up, a mighty and extraordinary eagle soared in the sky, and waves of clear cries came from its sharp beak. Boom, boom, boom. Under Alice's control, Smolf's wings flapped, and a violent storm comparable to a typhoon erupted from his wings. Boom, boom, boom. Perhaps it was because the force was too strong, but the tall and straight trees were all snapped in half. Even the sturdy buildings were trembling and there were clearly visible cracks. The violent wind blasted the fairy's body, and his enormous body actually trembled inconceivably and was pushed back a little. As expected of the great captain. The members of the Knight Regiment all looked at Alice with worship, their eyes shining with starlight. Even Claire's face was full of envy. As for Dustless, he was already ignored like air. Boom, boom, boom. The ferocious wind and waves slammed into the magical fairies. At first, it was fine, and the disgusting monster in the sky was forced to retreat. However, in the end, it seemed to have angered the ugly super monster. It opened its ugly mouth and roared twice. Ao, ao, ao. A hysterical explosion resounded through the sky, and a formless shock wave surged out, and unsurprisingly, it affected Smurf. Roar, Smurf let out a long cry, no longer as spirited as before. After a few mournful cries, he was like a kite with a broken string. Under everyone's shocked gazes, he finally slowly fell to the ground. The great captain lost. The members of the Knight Regiment were all incomparably shocked. Alice was their spiritual faith. If even Alice lost, who could stop this ugly fairy? For a moment, everyone was incomparably panicked. TSK, as expected, you still have to rely on me. This time, don't embarrass me. Stroking the holy sword in his hand, Dustless stepped forward with a smile. P.S. 3,000 fresh flowers plus updates, 3,000 rewards plus updates, 1,000 comments plus updates, 500 automatic subscriptions plus updates. Chapter 2202. The knights were all stunned. Alice was their spiritual faith. If even Alice failed, who would be able to stop this ugly magical fairy? Everyone panicked. TSK, you still have to rely on me. Don't embarrass me this time. Dustless stroked the holy sword in his hand and stepped forward with a smile. This monster isn't something you can handle. Don't meddle in other people's business. Seeing Dustless step forward, Claire quickly stood in front of him. If I don't meddle in other people's business, am I counting on you? Dustless asked with a smile, but in his heart, he had a whole new level of respect for Claire. This little girl looked a bit heartless, but she had a sharp tongue but a soft heart. In fact, she cared a lot about Dustless. Otherwise, she wouldn't have stood in front of him. Humph, don't look down on me. Claire proudly stuck out her cleavage. Too small. Glancing at her cleavage, Dustless tried to persuade her. Besides, in your eyes, am I someone who likes to talk big? This? Of course not. Claire paused for a moment before answering seriously. No matter what, Dustless usually looked sloppy and unreliable, but in reality, sometimes his frivolous appearance was more like disdain. Do you want to die? Dustless's appearance attracted everyone's attention. Alice said seriously, don't joke with your life. This has nothing to do with you. Hurry up and leave. I appreciate your kindness, but Dustless's smiling face suddenly turned bone-chillingly cold. He said coldly, I was on a date with Claire at the time. Her dorm room was torn down just like that. How could I have a foothold if I had just watched? Bah, who was on a date with you? Don't talk nonsense. It's just a slave elf. Claire turned her head with extreme disdain, but the joy in her eyes was hard to hide. After all, she had been alone for so long. Other than Linslet, her friend, the chances of anyone else standing up for her were zero. It was normal for her to be moved. How about this? Alice rolled her eyes, then moved closer to Dustless and suggested in a low voice, "Why don't we work together to deal with this guy? With this, the chances of winning might be." "I refuse." Dustless didn't even give Alice a chance to finish her sentence. He said softly, "I'm used to being alone. Sorry, but I have no interest in working with others." "You ungrateful stinky man." Alice stomped her feet in anger. She retreated with the rest of the knights and looked on coldly. Ao ao ao. As for the magical fairies in the void, they seemed to be enraged by Dustless. They opened their mouths and spat out a huge sound wave. Many people's ears were stinging and their eardrums were about to shatter. "Quickly cover your ears," Alice hurriedly urged. Her entire body was dizzy from the assault of the sound waves, and her head was ringing incessantly. The world was spinning, and she was unable to find her bearings. Why do you act like I killed your father?" Dustless had an innocent look on his face. In fact, he knew that the magical fairies were actually venting Restia's anger. After all, it was Dustless that caused the relationship between God Fengzhou and Restia to break down. It was inevitable that they would be viewed as enemies. The enemy of this magical fairies was Dustless from the beginning to the end. "Despicable bastard, it's because of you that my relationship with God Fengzhou broke down." In the darkness, Restia subconsciously clenched her fists the moment she saw Dustless appear. Restia deeply hated Dustless. This brat was too despicable. If she killed Dustless with her own hands, her relationship with God Fengzhou would be restored to how it was before. "You really overestimate yourself. You're not even a match for me, yet you found such an ugly monster. It's not even enough to fill the gaps between my teeth. Are you asking to be humiliated?" "Restia," Dustless muttered to himself. His words were filled with confidence. "Swallow this brat for me. First, bite that eyesore face of his into pieces." At a distance of a few dozen meters, Restia was extremely unlucky to see Dustless's despicable face. She was instantly enraged. Ao ao ao. The magical fairies that were affected by her hatred were instantly enraged. They opened their big mouth full of fangs and their huge body fell. "Quickly dodge, Dustless." Claire looked at the big mouth in fear. It could easily swallow a building, let alone a person. "Dodge. You're also looking down on me. I've faced countless experts in my life. What does a mere beast count as?" Dustless laughed dryly. At the same time, he raised his dagger-sized holy sword. "It's over." This scene, in the eyes of everyone, was that it could not withstand a single blow. How could such a weak sword defeat a colossus like the fairy? It was simply an egg smashing against a rock. He was overestimating himself. Boom! 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 Suddenly, a huge wave of energy erupted from Dustless's body. It was extremely intimidating, but very few people could sense it. On the other hand, the magical fairies floating in the sky seemed to sense a sense of danger and were actually terrified. The magical fairies weren't as arrogant as before. Instead, their cries were filled with a trace of pity. At this moment, the magical fairies were still secretly controlled by Restia. The reason why they were afraid was entirely due to their instinctive sense of danger. "Why would I need to use so much spiritual pressure to deal with trash like you? Just releasing a little bit of spiritual pressure is enough to make me think highly of you." The sacred sword that Wu Qin raised was shrouded in a dangerous sharpness. It was extremely dangerous. Even the space around the sword was slightly frozen. "Go to hell." With a casual swing of the sword, the tiny holy sword suddenly swung down, and an unstoppable slash swept out. Almost in the blink of an eye, the monster was swallowed up. P.S. 3,000 fresh flowers plus updates. 3,000 rewards plus updates, 1,000 comments plus updates, 500 automatic subscriptions plus updates. Chapter 2203. Poochie. The dazzling silver light pierced through the magical fairy's huge body. A long and narrow crack appeared on its body, almost covering its entire body. Its huge body was almost torn apart. Ao, 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 ao. The excruciating pain seemed to have stimulated the fairy. The fairy's life force was abnormally strong. Even though its stomach had been cut open, it still roared madly. It was even angered by the excruciating pain. Its roars were like thunder, spreading throughout the entire Alicia Academy. "You're still not dead." Dustless frowned and muttered to himself, as expected, "It's wrong to be merciful. I can't even leave you a complete corpse." Looking at the magical fairy, Dustless continued to mutter to himself, "Anyway, it's painful for you to live. Why don't I set you free? When you step into heaven, remember that your benefactor is called Dustless." The spiritual pressure in his body swept out, and a ferocious and fatal move descended. Tao Breaker 90, Black Coffin. In the void, many black shadowless blades suddenly appeared out of nowhere. The magical fairy was like a black hole emitting a powerful gravitational force, instantly sucking in everyone's spiritual pressure blades. Poochie. 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 The incomparably ferocious magical fairy was instantly cut into 8 pieces, its huge body miserably dismembered. Gulp. Og. 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 Many people couldn't bear this scene. Their lungs were in turmoil, and they couldn't help but vomit. So powerful. A group of girls stared at Dustless, tongue-tied. This so-called powerful magical fairy was like tofu in front of Dustless. It couldn't withstand a single blow from him. What's there to be surprised about? Being stared at like a monster by a group of people, Dustless felt rather uncomfortable. Especially Claire's fiery gaze, which was as hot as the sun, even wanting to melt him. "You're very powerful." Claire suddenly moved to Dustless's side and laughed. She was also extremely speechless. "Paw." Dustless almost jumped up. He turned his head and looked at Claire as if he had seen a ghost. He asked in disbelief, "You actually hit my butt? Is it my imagination? Or are you dreaming? You can hit me. Why can't I hit you?" Claire asked. Of course, being questioned like this, Dustless was really speechless and could only stare. In his opinion, Claire was acting like a hooligan. Dustless was used to teasing others, so he really wasn't used to being hit back. "Since you think it's very suitable, hee." Dustless laughed vulgarly. He moved closer to Claire's ear and said unhurriedly, "In the past, I've seen your body. How about this, when we go back to the room later, we'll be naked and you'll also see my body. This way, you won't lose out." When Dustless said that he would be honest with her, he purposely bit down on his words. Moreover, his face was filled with evil intentions, making him look like the reincarnation of a pervert. "You scoundrel." Claire slapped Dustless, her face instantly red. Cough, cough, cough. Alice, who couldn't stand it anymore, coughed awkwardly and reminded them, "This is a public place, please pay attention to your image." Dustless could afford to lose face, but Alice couldn't. "You want to thank me, right? Just say it, I'll accept it all." Dustless said with a smile, looking at Alice calmly. Alice was speechless. She really wanted to sincerely thank him, but the words she had prepared were swallowed back by Dustless's words. "I can't thank you enough. If you need my help in the future, just say the word. Our night group will definitely do our best." After saying that, Alice left, probably to report the situation to Grievous. "I should also go back." Dustless stretched and turned to leave. Last time, he had displayed his extraordinary strength, so Grievous also gave Dustless the treatment he deserved, an independent villa. Different levels of strength would naturally be valued differently. The stronger one was, the better the treatment they would receive. Where am I staying? Claire wanted to cry, but no tears came out. Looking at the ruined dormitory, it would take some time to rebuild it. The sky gradually darkened, and it was close to evening. That tigress Restia better not fall into my hands, or else. It was a mistake to let her go last time. If I had known, I would have forced her to sell me. In the misty bathroom, Dustless's mocking tone could be heard. It wasn't hard to hear the regret in his voice. Letting Restia leave was the worst choice. If he hadn't let her go, today's incident wouldn't have happened. After complaining for a while, Dustless put on his sleeping robe, dried the water on his hair, and walked out slowly. Looking at the living room, his gaze froze. "Miss Claire, what kind of show are you putting on?" Looking over, Claire was already lying on the sofa with her legs crossed. In front of her was a plate of fruits, and she was leisurely peeling them. "What? This is my home. Why can't I be here?" Claire was immediately unhappy. She put her hands on her hips and questioned, "I am your master, so what's wrong with me being here? You have the ability to pester endlessly. However, no matter what you say, there is only one place to sleep. If you can sleep on the sofa, I don't mind." Dustless shrugged indifferently. "Where's your gentlemanly demeanor?" Hearing this, Claire immediately jumped up. A mere slave elf was so arrogant. Hee. You want to sleep on the bed? That's fine too. If you want to sleep with me, although I am at a disadvantage, I don't mind if you squeeze a little, even if I have to suffer a little. Dustless opened his arms, but who would have thought that Claire would throw her slipper at him in an extremely unfriendly manner. P.S. 3,000 fresh flowers plus updates, 3,000 rewards plus updates, 1,000 reviews plus updates, 500 automatic subscriptions plus updates. Chapter 2204. What kind of person was Claire? She wanted her to sleep with Dustless. It was impossible to put the two of them on the same bed unless Claire directly turned into a motionless corpse. Only then would it be possible to put the two of them on the same bed. I've already given you the opportunity. It's up to you to choose. Dustless shrugged nonchalantly and said magnanimously, I've never liked to force things. No matter what, it's up to you. Those who didn't know might really foolishly think that Dustless was a good person, but in Claire's eyes, he was extremely despicable and shameless. Other than sleeping on the sofa, what other choice did she have? It was impossible for her to sleep with Dustless. Want to take advantage of me? Dream on. Claire snorted disdainfully. Soon after, she thought of something and said disdainfully, even if I sleep with you, a shameless bastard like you will definitely say that I took advantage of you and took advantage of you the next day. This little girl is getting more and more quick-witted. Incredible. Dustless laughed embarrassedly. Needless to say, Claire had guessed correctly this time. It was probably because she was used to Dustless's tricks. Claire was already used to Dustless's methods. Claire snorted coldly, full of resentment. Soon after, she said unhappily, just you wait, Dustless, you better not fall into my hands in the future, or else, that's a pity. At least in this lifetime. Dustless shrugged and only laughed. What a joke. He had destroyed countless worlds. If he was dealt with by a mere Claire, he might as well find a piece of tofu and kill himself, saving himself from embarrassment. You want to fight me with just you? Dustless laughed dryly and immediately turned to enter the bedroom. As for Claire, there was no need to worry. This girl wouldn't freeze herself for nothing. Moreover, this villa wasn't cold, so there was no need to worry. After all, Dustless's display of strength had shaken Grievous. This mercenary witch naturally wouldn't treat Dustless unfairly. Time flew by. In the blink of an eye, it was the morning of the next day. The two quickly entered their respective dreams. During this time, Dustless was greatly disappointed. He originally thought that Claire, who was unwilling to admit defeat, would sneak attack him at night. Who would have thought that she would be so quiet, waiting for a few hours in vain? The next day, the sun was high up in the sky. It was a rare sunny day. Strange, why does it seem like there's an extra person? Wu Chen, who was sleeping, suddenly opened his eyes in a daze. He mumbled to himself in a daze. He felt as if someone was lying on his body. Why do I feel that my leg is being hugged? Dustless stared blankly at the ceiling. His mind was clear, but he was also confused as he muttered to himself. He vaguely felt that his thighs seemed to be tightly hugged by a pair of weak little hands. This feeling is quite comfortable. I should be dreaming. No. Dustless suddenly thought of something and opened his eyes wide in his sleep. Looking down, the thick blanket covering Dustless was actually moving slightly. What was strange was that Dustless was sure that he didn't move. Clearly, it was someone else. Could it be Claire? No, this is absolutely impossible. How could she take the initiative to throw herself into my arms and hug me to sleep? This is too unrealistic. I would rather believe that God Feng Zhao can defeat me. Dustless suddenly shook his head. If Claire wanted to sneak attack him, perhaps his head would already be separated from his body and chopped into 8 pieces by that violent, Thunder Girl. If that's the case, it can only be her. Suddenly recalling the fairy sealed in the demon-slaying holy sword, Dustless's mind flashed with a flash of realization. Let me take a good look at you, my contracted fairy lady. As his voice fell, Dustless suddenly lifted the blanket and threw it away. A girl with long snow-white hair immediately entered Dustless's eyes. The girl's appearance was young and she looked like she was in her teens. She had big, watery eyes that were as bright as gems. The girl's expression was languid. As the sunlight fell on her body, she appeared particularly lazy. Her originally bright eyes suddenly became incomparably turbid. Good morning, Mr. Dustless. Extending her snow-white little hand, the silver-haired girl greeted him with a friendly smile. Although they were extremely unfamiliar and it was the first time they met, the girl acted as if she had met an ordinary friend that she had not seen for many years. She was very familiar and natural. Esther. Dustless's eyes moved slightly as he tried to ask. You know my name. Esther's naturally naive little face raised a faint arc, but it disappeared immediately, as if it was natural for Dustless to know her name. If you can know my name, why can't I know yours? Dustless asked with a smile. At the same time, he rubbed Esther's little head. She immediately closed her eyes and lay on Dustless's lap with great enjoyment. Aren't you curious how I know your name? The girl's calmness was out of Dustless's expectations. He could not help but ask. Since I know your name, it's normal for you to know my name as well. Esther blinked her eyes and asked very innocently. You're right. We instinctively have a contract. There's a saying that goes, hearts are linked as one. Dustless softly agreed. Then he lowered his head and looked at the girl lying on his lap comfortably. Although it was the first time they met, Esther's little face revealed a long-awaited look, as if she had been waiting for a long time. Oh right, I have something to ask you. She suddenly remembered the awkwardness when she used the elven device. It was clearly a powerful holy sword, but because of Dustless's personal reasons, it became a decorative dagger. She was helpless and angry. P.S. 3,000 flowers plus updates, 3,000 rewards plus updates, 1,000 reviews plus updates, 500 automatic subscriptions plus updates. Chapter 2205. Dustless, Kuan, are you trying to ask me why I can't unleash my full strength when you use the fairy device? Tilting his head, Esther voiced out Dustless's confusion. That's right, I really can't figure out the reason. Hearing this, Dustless nodded. He didn't think that he was useless. He was a 10-tailed beast with almost perfect stats in all aspects. Immortal body, unlimited stamina, endless power, and many other excellent conditions. How could such a perfect combination be useless? Didn't you already tell me the reason? Esther didn't answer but asked instead. You already told me. Hearing this, Dustless frowned slightly. He lowered his head and pondered for a while. Then he slapped his thigh and asked in surprise, could it be that I really can't control it well? This was just an excuse to fool Claire and Alice. Yes. Esther lowered his head seriously and said in a serious tone, you are indeed not familiar with using the fairy device for the first time. If you want to unleash my full strength, you will need more training. That makes me feel better. Dustless nodded slowly. The nail in his heart had been removed. Lying on the pillow, he said contentedly, Esther, hurry up and put on your clothes. Otherwise, if that devil Claire finds out, she will. Sorry, your reaction is too slow. I already found out. Bang! The owner of the murderous voice kicked open the bedroom door in anger. It was Claire, who was about to go berserk. Dustless, Kuan, who is she? Pointing at Claire, Esther tilted his head and asked, I feel a dangerous murderous aura. It seems to be directed at you. Are you enemies? I feel it too. Dustless didn't know whether to laugh or cry. He knew that Claire was jealous. He could feel Claire's anger from a few meters away. If he didn't give a reasonable explanation, Claire would definitely not let him go this time. Cough, cough, cough. This, clearing his throat, Dustless planned to explain before Claire made her move. Who would have thought that a sudden voice would directly interrupt Dustless's speech? Dustless, I heard that you fought a monster yesterday. You must be exhausted. I personally made some nourishing dishes. Eat them while they're hot. The person who interrupted Dustless's speech was none other than Linslet. However, the moment the master and servant stepped into the bedroom, Linslet was stunned. She saw that Estelle was not fully clothed. She was only wearing knee-length socks and was lying in Dustless's arms in an extremely ambiguous position. Bad things are happening one after another. This time, even if I jump into the river, I won't be able to clear my name. My nickname as a pervert is going to be confirmed. Dustless rubbed his eyes gloomily. Suddenly, he felt two monstrous waves of anger directed at him. However, this was only the beginning. Dustless, you helped our night group yesterday. Today, I brought something to see you. The crisp and pleasant female voice sounded again. Dustless heard the owner of this voice and felt uncomfortable in his heart. He was 100% sure that the owner of this voice was Alice. The pleasant and caring tone was extremely horrifying to Dustless's ears. If possible, he hoped that no one would appear at this moment. Like Linslet, the moment she stepped into Dustless's bedroom, Alice was also stunned. Seeing Estelle lying in Dustless's arms without clothes covering her body, her snow-white face immediately flushed red. The scene froze for a few seconds. Claire, Linslet, and Alice, who had always been on bad terms, actually stood on the same front, to deal with Dustless together. Smolf. Scarlet. Fenrir. The three delicate beauties actually released their contracted spirits at the same time and glared at Dustless covetously. The anger in their eyes was not concealed at all. Let's talk things out. Everyone, sit down. Seeing the three women who shared the same hatred, Dustless's old face changed slightly. He never thought that the three women would join forces to deal with him. Humph, pervert, I misjudged you. Linslet snorted ungratefully and immediately ordered, Fenrir, turn this pervert into an icicle and eliminate scum for the school. Smolf, you go too. Scarlet, you too. Claire and Linslet shouted at the same time. The three contracted spirits attacked Dushless at the same time. It was also at this moment that Estelle, who was lying in Dushless's arms, suddenly stood up and stood in front of Dushless without hesitation. Squat down. Este said softly as an extremely powerful aura swept out from him. Meow meow, ow ow ow, woo woo woo, the three contracted spirits whined at the same time. Then, under the horrified gaze of Claire and the others, they all obediently lay down in front of Estelle, their eyes filled with deep fear. What's going on? Linslet was shocked. At the same time, she was speechless. Her face was so awkward. She lifted her head and saw that Fenrir was as obedient as a puppy. It looked like it had met its master. Linslet had no face left. Not only Fenrir, but even Smolf and Scarlet were the same. Charge, Scarlet. Claire raised her voice several times, but the sad thing was, Scarlet ignored her. Alice was also shocked. She looked at Dushless, who was hiding behind Estelle, and deliberately said, Dushless, are you a coward who hides behind a child, greedy for life and afraid of death? This was obviously a provocation, but after living for so many years, would Dustless care? Obviously not. That's not bad. It's interesting to live off a woman occasionally. After all, I'm so handsome, it's normal to be fancied. If you want to keep me as your mistress, you'll have to line up. Who asked me to be so popular? Dustless's answer angered the three of them. He was living off a woman and still said it so righteously. This guy was simply shameless. P.S. 3,000 flowers plus updates, 3,000 rewards plus updates, 1,000 comments plus updates, 500 automatic subscriptions plus updates. Chapter 2206. This was obviously a provocation, but after living for so many years, would Dustless care? Obviously not. This is not bad. It is interesting to live off a woman occasionally. After all, I am so handsome, it is normal to be fancied. If you want to keep me, you have to line up. Who asked me to be so popular? Dustless's answer angered the three of them. How could he be so righteous when he said that he was living off a woman? This guy was simply shameless. Don't think that I am hopeless. What I said is the truth. Dustless leaned on the pillow lazily and said with a smile, You are still young now. When you grow up, you will understand what I mean. There are many things in this world that are beyond your control. The level you are exposed to now is too small, so you have a choice. You will not be exposed to that level, but when you grow up in the future, your sharpness will be worn away by time. It is so strange to be lectured by an old pervert like you. Claire groaned and looked at Dustless with dissatisfaction. Then she swept her eyes over Esther and stared at him, who looked like he was in his teens. She said with a sorrowful expression, My slave elf won't even let a little girl go. She's still a young girl, right? This is too perverted. As the master, I feel ashamed. As soon as she finished speaking, Claire looked at Dustless with disdain, as if she had seen a fly. Exactly, Alice and Linslet were also disgusted. If it was anyone else, it would have been fine, but Estelle saw that he was only 12 or 13 years old. If he was not a pervert, then what was he? Seeing that the girls were really angry, Dustless hurriedly looked at Estelle for help. Ahem. Estelle, hurry up and explain to me. I am the master's. Estelle nodded slowly and looked at Dustless. Unexpectedly, the latter was speechless. This little brat is too naive. This explanation will only make the misunderstanding worse. Dustless did not know whether to laugh or cry. He suddenly raised his head, and it was exactly as he had imagined. He could only continue to explain, "Her name is Esther. Her identity is actually the spirit in the Holy Sword, which is also my contract spirit. The contract spirit sealed in the Holy Sword." Hearing this, Claire looked at him in surprise. She had also wanted to tame the sacred sword, but who would have thought that she would almost lose her life? In the end, it was Dustless who had benefited from it. Even now, Claire was still brooding over this matter. "Yes." Esther nodded in agreement with Dustless's words. The three women looked at each other. Only then did their misunderstanding of Dustless disappear. Their cold gazes gradually softened as they stared at Estelle's calm eyes. It was not difficult to see that even if she was not fully clothed, it was not Dustless who forced her. Consider yourself lucky this time. Next time, if you dare to flirt with other women, be careful that I will chop off that part of yours." Claire looked at Dustless with a smile and said creepily, "This is really terrible. Women who go crazy are the natural enemies of men." Dustless sighed, then smiled and said, "I'm fine. It's just taking care of a magical spirit. It's not enough to make me tired. Some people who wanted to please you spent so much effort to make dishes that were not effective." With her hands on her hips, Claire glanced at Dustless and righteously declared her sovereignty. "Also, Dustless is my contract spirit. Pay attention to your identity, Linslet." "Ah! How long are you going to say such childish words?" "Claire." Linslet calmly stroked her golden hair and said disdainfully, "Stop dreaming. Do you think this guy will submit to you? You don't even have a butt or a chest. Whether or not you can get married is a problem." Linslet was obviously not to be trifled with. Her poisonous tongue was not inferior to Dustless's in the slightest. It is said that the war between men is bloody, while the war between women is erotic. Now it seems that this saying makes sense. Dustless watched silently and finally looked at Alice. "There's no need to thank me. Actually, it was I who implicated you." Dustless's tone was apologetic. In the end, that magical spirit came for him, and Alice and the others were just innocently implicated. Alice was silent and looked at Dustless quietly. After hearing these words, her impression of him increased. This guy seemed extremely unreliable, but he was still clear about gratitude and grudges. He would not make trouble for no reason. Speaking of which, it would be best for your night group to pay attention to that brat god Fengzhao in the future. Dustless looked at Alice meaningfully, then waved his hand and said, "Of course, you can also take this as my personal revenge against him. In any case, it's up to you how you want to deal with him. Pay attention to God Fengzhao." Hearing this, Alice frowned slightly. Everyone knew about the grudge between God Fengzhao and Dustless. His words did not sound like a personal revenge. "Is that guy very suspicious?" Alice asked with a frown. "Of course he is." Dustless nodded and said, "Restia is God Fengzhao's contracted spirit, and the magical spirit from before was instigated by Restia. The relationship between the two of them is like the lotus root and the silk thread. Isn't this suspicious? In my opinion, with all these reasons combined, it is normal to imprison that brat. All right, I will pay attention to him." No matter what, Alice was still skeptical. She took it as doing Dustless a favor. In any case, if it were not for Dustless, her night group might have been completely annihilated by that magical spirit. There will be a good show to watch now. Dustless's lips curled into a naughty smile. This was equivalent to helping God Fengzhao establish a strong enemy. Alice was an upright and fair person. She would not allow sand in her eyes. Once she had the slightest doubt, she would investigate to the end. P.S. 3,000 flowers plus updates, 3,000 rewards plus updates, 1,000 comments plus updates, 500 automatic subscriptions plus updates. Chapter 2207. Whether it was despicable or shameless, it didn't matter. The winner was king. The process and methods were secondary. That was why the saying, "good people don't live long, while bad people live for thousands of years," came about. With Estelle's help, the three girls nagged for a while before slowly leaving. Dustless could only accept it silently. Although they were very jealous, one thing was undeniable. From the beginning to the end, whether it was Claire or Lincelet, they were all thinking for him. Therefore, Dustless sometimes tolerated the wayward behavior of the three girls. After all, they were all on the same side. Moreover, the complaints of the girls sometimes seemed like pure coquettishness. Speaking of which, where did Claire go? Didn't her dorm get torn down and she wants to stay here? After putting on his clothes, Dustless realized that Claire had disappeared without him noticing. I'm not sure. Estelle happily held the ice cream in her hands as if she had eaten honey. Her face was full of sweetness. This foodie, Dustless couldn't help but shake his head. He couldn't help but think of the night sword god Toka. He lowered his head and looked at Estelle. It seemed like he could see the figure of the night sword god Toka. That problem girl is really troublesome. Let's go out and take a look. Dustless sighed. In the original work, Claire went out alone to relax. In the end, she was schemed against by Celestia and almost got into big trouble. Therefore, Dustless decided to go out and look for her. Estelle, let's go. Without waiting for Estelle's reply, Dustless walked towards the gate of Alicia Elf Academy. Okay, Dustless, Kuin. As for Estelle, she just happily hugged her ice cream and followed Dustless. With Dustless and ice cream by her side, she never felt lonely or lost. To Estelle, as a contracted elf, Dustless was her everything. Despicable Dustless, I'm just a slave. How dare you go behind my back and flirt with other girls? Could it be that I'm not charming at all? On the bustling street, Claire's desolate figure was extremely lonely. Is it really as Lincelet said? That my breasts are too small? And Dustless, that pervert, likes big breasts. Claire's footsteps suddenly stopped. Staring at her negligible cleavage, she couldn't help but feel defeated. For the first time in her life, she doubted her own figure. Little girl, you seem to be very sentimental. Just then, a pleasant voice came from behind her. It sounded a bit cold and even hostile, but Claire didn't hear it because she was in a trance. Who are you? Claire turned her head abruptly. The person in front of her was wearing a thick robe. You seem. Claire narrowed her eyes. She suddenly felt that the owner of this voice was familiar, as if she had met him somewhere before. I know you. Although it was only a guess, Claire looked at the black-robed man with unusual certainty. I didn't expect you to have such a deep impression of me. Should I feel honored? But it's a pity that you are that guy's woman. We are destined to be enemies. The black-robed man sighed. Then he took off his robe, revealing a well-developed body and an exquisite face. Lysia. Claire recognized this person's identity with a glance. Her hair stood on end and she said warily, Are you looking for me for revenge? Also, watch your tone. I'm not Dustless's woman. He. Who would have thought that Lysia would only laugh and say disapprovingly, I didn't say you were Dustless's woman. Are you admitting it yourself? You dare to trick me. Claire's pretty face flushed red. Her expression was like a cat whose tail had been stepped on, full of hostility. If I wanted to trick you, you would already be dead, wouldn't you? Lysia smiled gently, her charming eyes like silk. She said indifferently in a soft voice, I really don't know where that stinky man got his luck from. He actually managed to trick a group of women into revolving around him. That's right. Claire nodded in agreement. You want to obtain your slave spirit, that guy Dustless. After a while, Lysia blinked. Her watery eyes contained a huge amount of magic, enticing Claire's mind. Bah, who wants that bastard? It's best if he dies. Claire said disdainfully. She couldn't help but ask, what method do you have? Of course it's great strength. In the end, it's still because you're too weak. Lysia pursed her lips and thought silently for a while. Then she said slowly, if you have strength that surpasses Dustless, would that guy still ignore you? If you have great strength, you can chase away all the women around Dustless. That seems to make sense. Claire nodded subconsciously. In the end, it was still because of her own strength. This was a hard wound. Claire's gem-like fiery eyes suddenly dimmed. She took the bait. Seeing the absent-minded Claire, a crimson ball of light suddenly appeared in Lysia's hand. It floated above her palm, emitting an evil light. The moment this crimson ball of light appeared, Claire's mind was attracted. This is a spirit. Claire swallowed her saliva and asked eagerly. That's right. Lysia nodded her pure white chin and said, this is a mad spirit. It's far more powerful than Dustless's holy sword. Do you want to obtain it? These words were like a fatal blow to Claire's heart. Claire's heart suddenly trembled, and she nodded slightly. P.S. 3,000 flowers plus updates, 3,000 rewards plus updates, 1,000 evaluation votes plus updates, 500 automatic subscriptions plus updates. Chapter 2208. What Restia said was exactly what Claire wanted. She needed to be strong, not only for Dustless, but also for her other worry, her sister. Therefore, Claire needed powerful strength. Claire subconsciously reached out her small hand to grab the crimson ball of light. You want to use me to deal with Dustless? Claire suddenly recalled Dustless's smiling face and stopped as if she had been electrocuted. That's right, that's my plan. Facing Claire's question, Restia didn't deny it and said coldly, in order to get me, that guy used tricks to drive a wedge between me and the god. Why can't I take revenge? Claire frowned when she heard this. In fact, she didn't have any objections to this matter. The nature of this world was that the strong preyed on the weak. Just like how she had always wanted to snatch away the holy sword that sealed Esther, it was survival of the fittest. If God Fengzhou lost, he could only blame himself for being inferior. Dustless has a better future than God Fengzhou. Although she was unhappy with Dustless's promiscuous lifestyle, Claire couldn't deny that 10 God Fengzhou stacked together couldn't compare to one Dustless. You're right, he's indeed very different. Restia nodded slightly. This was a fact and there was no need to deny it. But, does this have anything to do with me? Since he wants to drive a wedge between me and the god, is there anything wrong with me helping you deal with Dustless's other women? Back and forth. Claire opened her mouth and found herself speechless. Restia was right. If Dustless could deal with God Fengzhou, then why couldn't Restia deal with Dustless's women? This was very fair. This damn school is really big. Dustless ridiculed. Beside her was Alice. Alicia Elven Academy was too big and needed a tour guide. It was impossible to rely on Dustless alone. Thus, Alice, who owed Dustless a favor, volunteered to help Dustless find Claire. Claire's older sister is a sore point in her heart. All these years, she's always wanted to sign a contract with a powerful spirit, but she failed every time. Now that she's disappeared, she probably went to find another powerful spirit. On the street, Alice explained to Dustless that Claire sounded very familiar. What the hell? I remember that you and Claire are enemies, right? After listening to your explanation, why do I feel like you're secretly observing her? Could it be that Linslet has possessed him? Wu-chan asked in surprise. The smile at the corner of his mouth was full of meaning. Alice's pretty face turned red, and her expression was awkward. She stuttered, not knowing what to say. Hypocrite. Esther glanced at Alice and continued to eat her ice cream. I'm the leader of the night group. I need to understand the personality of every student in Alicia and make sure that they're not bad people. Alice found a lame excuse to deal with it. This excuse is really lame, isn't it, Esther? Dustless said, curling his lips. Yes. Esther nodded innocently. Everything Dustless said was right to her. You. Alice angrily looked at the master and servant pair. Unable to vent her anger, she could only change the topic. No matter what, as long as there are elves, Claire can appear. I previously heard that there was a battle about military elves, no need to say more. Let's go there. Dustless's eyes flashed as he ordered in a serious tone. Contract spirits were summoned through a contract with the spirit user, but military spirits could be controlled without a contract. They had a wide range of uses, and regardless of the spirit user's ability, most people could draw out a certain degree of power from the military spirit. This was what Claire needed. In the original book, she participated in this competition. Okay, follow me. Although she didn't know why Dustless was so sure, Alice, who had no clue, could only nod. She didn't know where Claire went anyway, so she could only search one place at a time. On the other side, the competition about the military spirit. Even though Claire's previous performance was rather outstanding, almost all the enemies she met defeated her with valiant strength, and she was incomparably impressive. But as the saying goes, the bird that sticks out will be shot. Sometimes, being too outstanding wasn't a good thing. It would cause jealousy. The other competitors who wanted to win the military spirit achieved their goal of eliminating Claire as an obstacle. TSK, this girl is very outstanding. Her spirit is also very strong. It's just that it hasn't been discovered yet. Celestia, who was secretly observing the competition, nodded lightly. Claire's strength was indeed not bad. But Dustless, that brat, what's so special about him that he can win the favor of so many girls at the same time? Are the taste of girls nowadays so bad? Obviously thinking of something bad, Celestia's pretty face immediately became unhappy. She cursed inwardly, she's clearly a sunny and strong girl. Why is she following that bastard Dustless? What kind of charm does that brat have? Celestia understood. No matter if it was Claire, Linslet, or Alice, they were all outstanding figures among their peers and could be called geniuses. But these people seemed to have ambiguous relationships with Dustless. Claire naturally didn't need to be mentioned. She had always treated Dustless as her exclusive property. If anyone else dared to touch him, she would turn hostile. Even her only friend, Linslet, was no exception. And Linslet was the same. As a noble lady, she actually often sent food to Dustless to eat. Sometimes she even cooked personally. Although the food she cooked was hard to swallow, anyone could tell that Linslet also had feelings for Dustless. Although Alice was a bit of an exception, she was very curious about Dustless. Once a woman was curious about a man, she was close to falling for him. P.S. 3,000 fresh flowers plus updates, 3,000 rewards plus updates, 1,000 comments plus updates, 500 automatic subscriptions plus updates. Chapter 2209. Bang! Accompanied by a dull explosion, Claire's frail body flew out and landed on the ground in a sorry state. Her pretty face was pale and green, without a trace of blood. She simply didn't have enough strength to deal with the combined forces of everyone. Not everyone was as heaven-defying as Dustless, who could single-handedly destroy an opponent. Moreover, before his rise, Dustless was actually just a small character. No matter what, everyone had a period of time when they were young and inexperienced. Dustless's faint smile suddenly appeared in her mind. Claire was absent-minded for a moment. That seemingly frivolous and ridiculing smile had a special charm to it. What kind of person is he? Claire sighed softly. Although she called Dustless a pervert, and a scum all day long. But no matter what, Dustless only took advantage of her mouth most of the time and didn't make any aggressive moves. No matter what, I can't let that guy look down on me. Thinking of this, Claire stood up tenaciously, her unfocused eyes filled with determination and fearlessness. That kid's luck is pretty good to actually gain the favor of such a prideful girl. Observing from the shadows, Lysia was rather jealous of Dustless's good luck. The more outstanding Claire's performance was, the more she felt that it wasn't worth it for Claire. In Lysia's heart, Dustless was a heinous villain. Claire following him was like a fresh flower stuck in cow dung. The berserk elves are about to go berserk. Lysia muttered to herself, her eyes widening in anticipation. Berserk elves were an extremely special type of elf. Although their strength was average, they were extremely vicious. Just like their name, they could cause the other party's contracted elves to go berserk. They wouldn't even recognize their own kin and would even attack their own master. Whoa! Not long after Restia finished speaking, a heart-wrenching scream came from the arena. It was as if a demon had awoken and was venting its joy. Hee, the show is about to begin. Celestia pursed her lips and snickered. Following her line of sight, she saw that the contracted spirits that had surrounded Claire had actually started attacking their allies. The scene had sunk into an unprecedented chaotic battle. What's going on? Is there an internal strife? Claire's face was also full of confusion. She didn't understand why the people who had previously allied to deal with her had suddenly started killing each other. We're all enemies anyway. This is a rare opportunity. Scarlet, give me. Claire's gaze fell on Scarlet. Seeing the strange state of the contracted elf, her voice became softer and softer until it was completely inaudible. Scarlet, you... To Claire's astonishment, the originally petite Scarlet had suddenly become dozens of times larger. Furthermore, the pure flames emitting from his body had clearly been contaminated and carried a dark red evil light. This color was the same as the wild elf Celestia had given Claire. Aoo. Scarlet's sharp roar was filled with endless killing intent. The flames burning all over his body became even more intense. The enemy he was targeting was actually Claire. Plop. Perhaps it was her first time seeing such a scene, but Claire was so frightened that she fell to the ground. Soon after, 2 clear lines of tears slowly flowed down, wetting Claire's little face. Scarlet. It's all my fault. I shouldn't have participated in this competition. You've become like this. Claire's nose was sore and tears flowed like pear blossoms. No matter how innocent she was, she knew that this was the doing of the wild elf Celestia had given her. Whoa. However, Scarlet clearly didn't want to listen to Claire's explanation. His huge body leapt up and opened his terrifying mouth full of sharp teeth to bite her. Not to mention the frail Claire, even steel would deform after being bitten by such a large mouth, leaving a few horrifying teeth marks. Ah! So you really did participate in this competition behind my back. What a troublesome little girl, a lazy, unrestrained voice suddenly sounded, deep and magnetic. Although it sounded unreliable and lazy, in Claire's eyes, it was great joy. Dustless. Turning her head, Claire found that it was indeed this face that she loved and hated. Despicable guy. Why did he have to appear at this time? Was he purposely waiting for a handsome opportunity to appear? The moment Dustless appeared, Celestia's smiling face suddenly froze. She glared at that gentle face unhappily, feeling like a thorn in her side. Scarlet went berserk. It's all because I listened to that bad woman. Am I stupid? I was fooled by her words. Ignoring the situation, Claire threw herself into Dustless's arms and burst into tears. At this moment, she just wanted to find someone to vent her grievances to. If you're wrong, you should correct it. If you're not, you should try harder. It's just a small matter. Also, who said that Scarlet went berserk? No, don't worry, Scarlet was just emotional. He'll still listen to me. Dustless softly comforted Claire as he rubbed her little head. Listen to you? What nonsense. Celestia, however, snorted disdainfully and muttered to herself, a contracted elf that has been corrupted by a mad elf already doesn't recognize anyone. He even dares to attack his master, let alone an outsider like you who has nothing to do with him. He's just asking for humiliation. However, Celestia didn't speak for long before she was slapped in the face. Walking in front of Scarlet, Dustless said softly, "Sit down." Plop. Then, under the gaze of countless pairs of eyes, the berserk Scarlet sat down obediently and became the gentle kitten from before. In front of my eye power, all contracted elves are pets. P.S. 3,000 fresh flowers plus more chapters, 3,000 rewards plus more chapters, 1,000 reviews plus more chapters, 500 automatic subscriptions plus more chapters. Chapter 22:10. Impossible. This contracted elf was corrupted by the mad elf and should have lost its consciousness. Why would it obey Dustless, an outsider? That contracted elf called Scarlet didn't even obey the orders of its master, Claire. Why would it listen to Dustless? What the hell? Celestia's mouth was wide open. She was so shocked that a fist could fit in it. Such a shocking thing was too strange. The contracted elf was controlled by the mad elf, and as the master, Claire couldn't do anything about it. But Dustless, an outsider, just said, "Sit down," and Scarlet, the furious elf, immediately regained its calm. Dustless, Kuan. Those eyes seemed to be very special. Esther was also very surprised. She naturally knew that the mad elf was unusual, but she still underestimated Dustless. Shake hands. Dustless smiled again as the Sharingan emitted a scarlet light. Oh whoa. Scarlet let out another roar. Although it sounded very scary, like the roar of a beast, it still obediently stretched out its huge claws. Seeing this scene, Claire was so happy that she was about to cry. This is just a small problem. Don't worry about it, Claire. Seeing Claire's grateful look, Dustless explained casually, "Remember, in this world, everything has its limit, including that mad elf. Compared to my Sharingan, it is too weak." Sharingan. Aster was at a loss. He looked at Dustless curiously and asked, "Are you the one who used this to control Scarlet?" "That's right." Dustless nodded. "What kind of magic is that?" "Very impressive." Estelle looked at Wu Qin with a face full of eagerness. "This." Dustless felt a headache. What was the Sharingan? How to explain it? The basic explanation was different. In different worlds, it was difficult to understand the power between them. Actually, it's mainly because I'm too handsome. This Scarlet is also a female elf. She was so charmed by me that she regained her consciousness. Sigh, what a lecherous elf. Dustless's face was full of trouble. Go to hell. My Scarlet isn't like that. Claire glared at Dustless with a red face. This guy was too infuriating. You don't believe me. Dustless's face was full of disappointment. Soon after, he said, "Restia has taken a fancy to me." She knows that I'm handsome and can attract other women, so she wants to use Claire to chase away all the women around me. In the end, she will get rid of Claire. Sigh. Restia, this woman is really a scheming bitch. If she wants to possess me, she can just say so. Sigh. But I can't blame her. It's all because I'm too handsome. I'm really a sinful man. Poochie. Celestia, who had been staring at Dushless, almost vomited blood when she heard that. She roared furiously in her heart, I like you. Do you think I'm blind? This brat's mouth is so cheap. How did he survive until now? I'll talk to Dustless now. Celestia took 2 steps and stopped. She suddenly thought of something and sneered, Brat, you're trying to provoke me. You want to lure me out? Dream on. There's still a long way to go. You have so many women. There are countless loopholes. After taking a deep look at Dushless, Celestia disappeared. That woman can't be a ninja turtle, right? She's so tolerant. Wuchen frowned slightly. When he realized that Restia did not appear, he shook his head in disappointment. His words just now were meant to provoke Restia. His purpose was to make Restia come out. Who would have thought that this woman's patience was stronger than he imagined? Oh whoa. At this moment, Scarlet let out a loud cry. A dark red ball of light flew out of its body. Berserk elf. Celestia looked at the sky and answered seriously. It's this thing. That bad woman gave it to me. Claire clenched her teeth. At this moment, Scarlet had also returned to his original appearance, but he was lying on the ground half dead. His shiny fur was also dim, like withered weeds. It was obvious that the rampage just now had taken a toll on his physical strength, resulting in him fainting. Disappear, brother. Dustless blinked lightly. The evil ball of light was immediately wrapped in a black flame. Amaterasu. In the blink of an eye, the black, ominous flame swallowed the berserk elf's body. Not even a trace of him was left. Go back, Claire. Remember this lesson. Dustless glanced at Claire and saw her hugging Scarlet sadly. Your talent is not bad. It's only a matter of time before you become stronger. Don't borrow the strength of others. If you want to become strong, there are no shortcuts. I understand. Claire nodded her head resolutely. She hugged Scarlet tightly, not letting go. It's all settled. Alice, who had led the knights over, was stunned when she saw Dustless and Claire leaving the arena. Isn't this too fast? I don't have time to waste on other things. Dustless shrugged. Of course, this kind of small trouble should be solved quickly. Could it be delayed for a few more hours? That's right. It's fine if Celestia doesn't come out. But, an eye for an eye. As the saying goes, revenge doesn't wait overnight. Dustless laughed evilly. If he was schemed against, he had to pay it back 100 times. Otherwise, wouldn't he have suffered a great loss? Celestia could scheme against Claire, so why couldn't Dustless scheme against Godfingzhou? This was very fair. Moreover, he could take the opportunity to stir up conflict between Godfingzhou and Celestia. P.S. 3,000 flowers as a reward, 3,000 flowers as a bonus, 1,000 comments as a bonus, 500 automatic subscriptions as a bonus. Chapter 22:11. In reality, Claire was just innocently implicated. In the end, it was a grudge between Dustless and Restia. Since Restia chose to shift the blame and dragged Claire into it, Dustless could also do the same to Restia and plot against Godfingzhou. Since you dare to fight with me, I'll play with you and see who loses their pants first. Dustless seemed to have thought of a good plan and laughed strangely. Gulp. Alice and Claire looked at each other. Although they didn't know what Dushless was planning, there was no doubt that the person targeted by Dushless would be unlucky. Let's go back, Claire. Thinking of a good idea to trick people, Dustless also had a sudden impulse. He spoke a few more words with Alice and gave her the task of taking care of the funeral. Then, Dustless and Claire left. What exactly did you think of? On the way back, seeing Dustless's gloating expression, Claire couldn't help but ask curiously, but... Although I don't know what you're planning, it's best not to go overboard. Dean Grievous still thinks highly of God Fengzhou. I know. Hearing this, Dustless nodded and patted Claire's shoulder. Leave it to me. I'll get back at God Fengzhou for what Restia did to you. Claire's voice was as soft as a mosquito. This time, she didn't resist when Dustless patted her shoulder. Instead, a charming blush appeared on her pretty face. Today's commoner is really, really happy. However, Dustless, who was obsessed with scheming against God Fengzhou, didn't see this scene. Otherwise, his jaw would have dropped. Claire, who was hostile to him, actually had feelings for him. At night, the sky was dotted with stars. It was a beautiful sight. How can I become stronger? That's a big problem. In the broken house next to the stable, God Fengzhou's eyes were blank and lifeless. It was as if his soul had been sucked out. Rather than calling him a person, it was more appropriate to call him a walking corpse that had lost its emotions. Coo 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 coo. At this moment, a strange cry suddenly sounded. Hearing this strange sound, God Fengzhou's face suddenly changed. He quickly picked up the blanket and covered himself with it. Even so, he could still smell a bit of stench. What bad luck! Fengzhou, who was in his bed, cursed out loud. He knew that the horse in the stable next to him had pooped and peed again. His face immediately turned green. Sometimes, when he was eating, he could even smell the disgusting smell. I have to be like Dustless and show my strength as soon as possible so that I can leave this disgusting place and live in a beautiful villa. Deity Fengzhou clenches his teeth and swears that he will live next to the stable, accompanied by horse feces and horse urine. As for Dustless, he will live in a magnificent villa, making Deity Fengzhou envious to death. Clap, clap, clap. At this moment, the sound of clapping suddenly sounded out. It was extremely sudden. Who is it? How dare you barge into my house without my permission? You are Dustless. Deity Fengzhou crawled out from the blanket with an unfriendly face. This was because the figure in front of him was extremely annoying. It was Dustless who had always made him suffer. Hee hee, Dustless laughed dryly and sat down. Looking at the shabby environment, he clicked his tongue in wonder and said, "How pitiful. I have to be with a group of animals all day. No, I have to be with a pile of horse feces and horse urine all day long. I say, Deity Fengzhou, don't tell me you were a coachman in your previous life." Dustless. Deity Fengzhou immediately went berserk. He looked at Dustless unkindly and said with disdain, "My place is too small to accommodate a great god like you. If you are staying here just to mock me, then please leave now." Celestial being Fengzhou said in a righteous manner. He looked at Wuchen coldly. What a stinky word. After being with horse feces for such a long time, you are stinky too. Deity Fengzhou. Dustless smiled faintly and completely ignored his expulsion order. He said with a smile, "I saw Restia today." And then? Deity Fengzhou looked indifferent on the surface, but he was extremely concerned in his heart. He secretly glanced at Dustless. And then? Of course it was me, a god who came down from the heavens and thwarted Restia's plot. She was charmed by my extraordinary power and couldn't help but throw herself at me. She even wanted to be my bed warmer and have a bunch of children with me. Dustless talked nonsense with a serious face. Who are you trying to fool? In my opinion, Restia schemed against you and made you lose face. That's why you are here to find trouble with me. Deity Fingzhou sneered disdainfully. You are right. I am here to find trouble with you tonight. Dustless didn't hide his purpose and said directly, since Restia dared to scheme against my people, then it's not too much for me to scheme against you, right? You bastard. You bully the weak and fear the strong. Deity Fingzhao's face turned black. This guy was too shameless. He couldn't afford to offend Restia, so he actually came to bully him. Too shameless. I am indeed bullying the weak and fear the strong. Are you going to bite me? Dustless retorted and immediately used his spiritual force to invade Deity Fingzhao's mind. Don't worry, I won't trick you. I am only using your body to do something. What do you want to do? I warn you, don't mess around and don't ignore the rules of this school. Otherwise, that old witch Grievous will definitely not let you off. Being stared at by Dustless, Deity Fingzhou felt uneasy. It was as if he was being stared at by a demon. His entire body was filled with disgust. Don't worry, it's not a big deal. I am just using your body to sneak up on others. Dustless laughed gloatingly. Deity Fingzhou, on the other hand, was in despair. This was the rhythm of playing him to death. P.S. 3,000 fresh flowers plus updates, 3,000 rewards plus updates, 1,000 comments plus updates, 500 automatic subscriptions plus updates. Chapter 22:12. You want me to sneak attack others, so I'll sneak attack others. Do you think I'm an idiot? God Fingzhou sneered. Who would be so obedient? Retard. Idiot, you don't have a choice. Dustless was disdainful, and the mental force that invaded God Fingzhou's mind became even more obvious. Since this brat didn't know what was good for him, then don't blame me for being ruthless. Ah! My head hurts, it hurts. Suddenly, a painful voice came out from God Fingzhou's mouth. He hugged his head and rolled around like a madman. The pain made him sweat profusely, and the veins on his forehead popped out. Very uncomfortable, right? Dustless sat down and looked deeply at God Fingzhou. He said softly, I don't like to make trouble without reason. This is what you deserve. Dustless, you damn bastard. Ah! It hurts. God Fingzhou pointed at Dustless's nose and was about to curse, but who knew that his head would hurt even more? It was so painful that it felt like it was going to explode. You bastard. Under the intense pain, God Fingzhou's face became slightly malevolent. He roared, you did it, right? Despicable and sinister person. Reckless thing. Hearing this, Dustless coldly snorted, and the mental force that invaded God Fingzhou's mind became even more unrestrained. Ah! God Fingzhou screamed in pain again. His screams were extremely ear-piercing, hoping that someone would hear it and quickly come to stop Dustless. This great demon king was too despicable. He, go ahead and scream. Even if you scream until your throat breaks, no one will care about you. I forgot to tell you before I came, I set up a barrier around your house. No matter what happens here, no one will know. Dustless looked at God Fingzhou with a smug face. He winked at God Fingzhou and was asking for a beating. You, God Fingzhou sucked in a breath of cold air, suppressing his anger, and asked in a hoarse voice, Restia offended you, but you came to find trouble with me? What kind of logic is this? Then why would she want to take revenge on Claire if I offended her? Dustless asked indifferently. After being questioned by Dustless, God Fingzhou's angry expression disappeared in an instant, and he was left speechless. That's right, if Celestia could play dirty, why couldn't Dustless do the same? Was it too much for you to do the same for me? Brat, if you want to complain, then complain to that woman. After taking a sip of water to moisten his throat, Dustless said indifferently, if it wasn't for Lesia playing this trick first, I wouldn't have bothered you. You're just an ant. In any case, remember that all of this is because of Lesia. With that, Dustless started to torture God Feng Zhao. Ah, my head hurts, let me go. God Feng Zhao, who couldn't take it anymore, roared hysterically once again. He rolled on the ground in agony. His body was covered in mud and his eyes were bloodshot. Dustless's words kept echoing in his mind, everything was caused by Restia. Lesia, why did you do this? You clearly knew that you were going to find trouble with Dustless. Although you could run, that madman would definitely come to find me. Aren't you harming me? It's all because of you that I'm being tortured, Lesia. God Feng Zhao muttered, and there was a trace of resentment in his tone. That foolish brat, he took the bait so easily. TSK, what a waste of my feelings. To think that I prepared so many procedures. I didn't expect that God Feng Zhao would have a gap with Lesia because of this matter. It seems like I'm overthinking. Perhaps their feelings aren't as firm as I thought. Dustless smirked in his heart. In fact, he hoped that God Feng Zhao would hate Lesia and understand that the reason why he was being tortured was all because of Lesia. Just as Dustless thought, God Feng Zhao also thought in this direction. Indeed, the heavens would not let down those who were willing. In fact, the feelings between Lesia and God Feng Zhao were no longer as firm as imagined. Firstly, they hadn't seen each other for a few years, and time could dilute everything. Secondly, the most fatal thing was that a while ago, Dustless humiliated God Feng Zhao in front of countless people, and the indirect reason was Lesia. At that time, Lesia didn't care about God Feng Zhao's obstruction and kissed Dustless in front of everyone, and God Feng Zhao almost collapsed. Hee, it's almost time. It's time to serve the main course. Dustless's lips curled up slightly, like a fox about to hunt, very cunning. What do you want? The sharp pain suddenly stopped, and God Feng Zhao was overjoyed. The moment he raised his head, his smile froze because Dustless was looking at him with a playful gaze. Nothing much, just obediently become my slave. Dustless revealed his demonic Sharingan, and the ruby-like radiance was mysterious and noble, causing God Feng Zhao to be absent-minded. Don't look. Sensing the terror of this pair of eyes, God Feng Zhao quickly withdrew his eyes and looked at Dustless. He felt that he was about to sink into it, and his thoughts could be annihilated at any time. Still want to resist? Too naive, even Lesia couldn't resist my eye power, let alone you. Dustless's face was full of disdain, and then he suddenly grabbed God Feng Zhao's head. Their eyes met, and his eye power was activated. Obediently obey my orders, God Feng Zhao. With a slight blink of his eyes, the majestic spiritual power replaced God Feng Zhao's thoughts and occupied his mind. Dustless's purpose is actually quite simple, to use the Sharingan to change God Feng Zhao's thoughts and world, making God Feng Zhao think that other people are Dustless. Hee, the male lead is ready, we can go now, this time there will be a good show to watch. As soon as his voice fell, Dustless and God Feng Zhao disappeared, and the direction they are heading is Grievous's house. P.S. 3,000 flowers plus updates, 3,000 rewards plus updates, 1,000 comments plus updates, 500 automatic subscriptions plus updates. Chapter 22:13. Swoosh swoosh swoosh. Under the night sky, two silhouettes disappeared in an instant. Only vague shadows could be seen. These two people were Wu Qin and Feng Zhao, who was being controlled. Hee, there will be a good show to watch later. Along the way, Dustless couldn't stop laughing as if he had eaten honey. He kept repeating the words, there will be a good show to watch. There was no doubt that this time, Grievous was also in Dustless's calculations. Although this Dean seemed to be pampered, her actual strength was still very strong. Therefore, Dustless wasn't worried about Grievous being killed. On the contrary, God Fengzhou was going to be unlucky. Swoosh swoosh swoosh. As Dustless was a frequent visitor to Grievous's house, he was familiar with the route and easily led God Fengzhou to avoid the eyes and ears of the knights. This old woman is taking a bath in the middle of the night. His right eye suddenly turned into the Tensigen, and the scene in the distance suddenly became very clear. The sharp-eyed Dustless was surprised to find that it was in the middle of the night, and Dean Grievous was actually taking a bath. Cough cough cough, Dustless took a few glances and retracted his gaze. When he was about to control God Fengzhou to sneak attack, he suddenly stopped and thought, let's do it later. Grievous is taking a bath. If we rush over at this time, won't that little bastard God Fengzhou take advantage of it? Dream on. Therefore, Dustless decisively gave up the idea of sneak attack. It's fine to wait for a while. Time flew by, and after about half an hour, Grievous finally finished her bath. She put on her pajamas and slowly walked out of the bathroom. She even deliberately applied an unknown liquid similar to a facial mask on her cheeks and lay on the sofa comfortably. Go, God Fengzhou number 1, oh, no, to be exact, scapegoat number 1. Dustless smiled gently, and immediately blinked his eyes slightly. God Fengzhou's body suddenly shot out. Swoosh swoosh swoosh. Dustless, who controlled God Fengzhou, didn't hide his speed and invaded openly. Someone is invading. Grievous, who was lying on the sofa, opened her eyes. Killing intent flashed in her eyes as she said indifferently, "You've got guts. You even dare to assassinate me." At the end of her speech, Grievous's beautiful face was covered in frost. Even the mysterious item on her face was frozen. Bang! The black shadow kicked the door open and walked in with an arrogant look on his face. "It's you, God Fengzhou." Grievous's ice-cold face froze slightly. Soon after, she asked with a frown, "What do you mean? Instead of sleeping, you came to my place in the middle of the night to cause trouble. Old virgin, why do you care what I do here? Who the hell are you?" The Fengzhou celestial being controlled by Dustless seemed to have eaten gunpowder as it said in an unfriendly manner, "What's more, this pair of legs grew on my legs, why do you care where I go?" "You, what did you call me?" Grievous's pretty face turned black, and her cleavage trembled in anger. She almost jumped out of her pajamas. Her beautiful eyes were spitting fire, and her fists were clenched so tightly that creaking sounds could be heard. Old virgin. Using this title to call Grievous, wasn't he tired of living? It was equivalent to declaring war on the death god. Old virgin, didn't you hear me? Do you need me to call you 10 more times? The Fengzhou celestial being controlled by Dustless grinned, revealing its white teeth. With a crazy and arrogant look, it said, why are you glaring at me? Do you think I'm afraid because you're a tigress? Do you think I'm afraid of you because you're a 1,000-year-old virgin? Grievous's face flushed red, and she almost fainted from anger. She forcefully suppressed the boiling killing intent and said in a hoarse voice, "You're a student, and you've suffered enough blows from Dustless these days. I know you're mentally unstable, and I can understand. Now, take back what you just said. I won't lower myself to your level, and I can also treat tonight's matter as if it didn't happen." It had to be said that if it were someone else, Grievous might have already killed the other party. However, the Fengzhou celestial was different. A few years ago, the Fengzhou celestial tried to assassinate her, but unfortunately, she was easily defeated by Grievous. Furthermore, she worked as a maid in Grievous's house for a few years, and during this period, she taught the Fengzhou celestial a lot of swordsmanship. It was because of the accumulation of strength that the Fengzhou celestial was able to disguise as Liena Subble and participate in the Elven Sword Dance Festival to become the champion and obtain the title of the strongest sword dancer. To a certain extent, the Fengzhou Celestial was Gruiz's disciple, which was why this kid received a lot of special treatment. However, the Fengzhou Celestial being was controlled by Dustless at this moment, so these words were destined to be bullshit. Old virgin, why are you wasting my time? If you're afraid of me, then say it. Come, take off your clothes and dance for me. At the same time, give me a smile. Don't look like I'm the one who raped you. If you really can't do it, I'll give you a smile. As soon as his voice fell, the Fengzhou Celestial being controlled by Dustless revealed a charming smile. Fengzhou Celestial being. You. Go. Die. Gruiz was furious. After being ridiculed by Dustless time and time again, even a clay figurine would vomit blood from anger, not to mention Gruiz, who was the dean with a high position and authority. Boom boom boom. A powerful divine aura erupted from Gruiz. This scale and range was stronger than anyone Dustless had ever seen. Compared to Gruiz, Claire, Linslet, and Alice were all weak. This woman. Hee, the fish has taken the bait. Dustless laughed in the dark. He didn't expect Gruiz to be so easily fooled. Actually, if one listened carefully, they would be able to tell that those words didn't sound like it was said by the Fengzhou Celestial being. However, Gruiz was really angry at this moment, so she didn't analyze it. Anyway, it was the Fengzhou Celestial being who said it. P.S. 3,000 fresh flowers plus updates, 3,000 rewards plus updates, 1,000 evaluation votes plus updates, 500 automatic subscriptions plus updates. Chapter 22:14. Brat, it's useless even if you regret it now. I will make you unforgettable for the price of those words. I will make you regret living in this world. Grievous's tone was extremely cold. Every time she spoke, the house would tremble slightly. It was obvious that Grievous was really angry. Being scolded left and right as an old spinster, anyone would be enraged, let alone Grievous. Tisk, do you think your daddy Fengzhou is scared? Do you think I'm that easy to bully? Fengzhou, who was controlled by Dustless, glared at Grievous without any fear. He stared at her body and said, with your lousy body, I would despise you even if you were to be thrown to me. Other than having a bigger chest, what else is special about you? With your bad temper, your dowry is the entire Alicia Academy. I have to consider it. Furthermore, you can't be my legal wife. You can only be my little concubine. Any woman, even a saintess who had no emotions, would definitely fly into a rage after hearing Dustless's words. They would try their best to kill Dustless. But at this moment, Grievous was incomparably calm as she looked at Fengzhou with suspicion. That's not right. My impression of Fengzhou isn't this crude. Although that guy is dissatisfied with me, he wouldn't dare to speak to me like that. This tone, it's more like Dustless. Thinking of this, Grievous looked at Fengzhou with piercingly cold eyes. Her clear eyes seemed to be able to see through Fengzhou. This is bad. Seeing this, Dustless, who was secretly controlling Fengzhou, had a slight change in expression. He cursed in his heart, oh no, I went too deep and forgot about the important matter. But, immediately after, Dustless smiled confidently and controlled Fengzhou to continue speaking, you old witch, do you still remember what you did to me? That damned old virgin actually wanted me to be your maid. I've always remembered this matter in my heart. Fengzhou. Deity, Grievous bit out every word. He was still doubtful before, but now he was sure that the guy in front of him was God Fengzhou. There was only one person in the world who knew that God Fengzhou used to be his maid, and that was God Fengzhou herself. Luckily, I was quick-witted and almost exposed myself. Seeing that Grievous had regained her cold demeanor, Dustless secretly heaved a sigh of relief. With your current strength, you want to challenge me? Grievous sneered and said in disdain, even the previous Liana Subble was not my opponent, let alone the current you. What is your courage to challenge me? What is it? The Feng Zhao celestial being controlled by Wu Chen retorted sarcastically, there's no reason. You just have to find a reason. Old virgin, I don't like you, okay? I feel that once my wings have hardened, I can break your arm. Is this reason enough? You, Grievous almost fainted from the blow. Since when did that seemingly shy god Feng Zhao become so eloquent? Ding! At the same time, the team of knights led by Alice had also arrived, and they stood respectfully beside Grievous. You guys came at the right time. Teach this kid a lesson. Grievous clenched her teeth and said angrily, as long as you don't kill him, beat him hard. Whoever shows mercy is going against me. Alice and the other members of the knights looked at Grievous in disbelief. They couldn't figure out what was wrong with this woman. Didn't she take care of Feng Zhao in the past? What are you waiting for? This is Dean's order. After being stunned for a few seconds, Alice didn't waste any time and directly ordered the members of the knights. In the end, everyone swarmed towards Feng Zhao. Hee, my goal has been achieved. Good luck to you, Feng Zhao. I hope you won't be beaten to death by random punches. Otherwise, I will be too lonely. Dustless smirked and released Feng Zhao's consciousness. Plop. Feng Zhao fell to the ground with a dumbfounded expression. His eyes were filled with confusion as he muttered to himself, strange, I'm not in my own room. Why did I suddenly appear in old witch Grievous's house? And why is this group of knights glaring at me ferociously? What did I do? Feng Zhao's consciousness returned. He was indescribably confused. He couldn't remember anything that had happened before. At this moment, he had a splitting headache. His head was about to be torn apart. Sigh, that's right. It's all that damn Dustless's fault. Suddenly thinking of Dustless, Feng Zhao's eyes lit up. He glanced at the expressionless Grievous and quickly complained, Old witch, let me tell you, bang bang bang. Before Feng Zhao's voice fell, it was replaced by the sound of punches. The members of the knights beat Feng Zhao up. Although they didn't know why, the members of the knights all pressed Feng Zhao to the ground and beat him up. Anyway, it was Grievous's order. Why are you beating me? What did I do? Preposterous. You guys from the knights actually used your position to avenge private grudges. Also, that old witch Grievous actually watched me get beaten up. Feng Zhao, who was beaten up until he covered his head and fled like a rat, wanted to cry but had no tears. He didn't do anything, so why was he beaten up? TSK, your reaction is really slow. Until now, you still haven't figured out why. You deserve to be beaten up. This is the result of going against me. You better die. Otherwise, I will slowly torture you to death in the future. Wu Chen smiled but didn't say anything. He took a few more glances at God Feng Zhao who was violently beaten up. Soon after, he left unhurriedly. Grieva was currently in a rage. If she didn't cripple this brat God Feng Zhao, how could she be discouraged? Today, the commoners are really happy. Humming a tune, Dustless left leisurely. His expression was leisurely and complacent, like a satisfied deity. Anyway, all of this had nothing to do with him. No one saw it. As for Feng Zhao's explanation, it was all a framing. P.S. 3,000 fresh flowers plus updates, 3,000 rewards plus updates, 1,000 comments plus updates, 500 automatic subscriptions plus updates. You're tuning into the LoveLore Library YouTube channel. We're so grateful for your support and don't forget to subscribe to join us on this incredible journey through captivating stories. Your generosity through donations truly makes a world of difference, as it's the primary source of revenue that allows me to expand and enhance this channel for you. Thank you from the bottom of my heart for being a part of this adventure.